of the stories that matter. Folks, it is American Education Week, as we announced yesterday, and we just thought it would be a great time to have an education based weekly wrap. Let's talk about what's been happening in the world of education. There are a lot of stories that we have covered on this show where the endings have not been shared. We need to close the gap. We need to tie up the loop, finish the loose ends, and talk about what has been happening with education in this city. We have a lot going on this hour. We're going to talk with Dr. Joseph Flynn. He's the author of the book Around White Fatigue. We're going to talk about what the impact is of racism on education when it comes to educating African American young men and young women. Additionally, we're going to follow back up with former councilman Carl Stokes. We're going to talk about what happened at the school board meeting last night. He's bringing a parent on with him to give us the update on what took place at that crowded school board meeting last night. In the next hour, I want to talk about the teacher. Remember the teacher that was punched by the student over at Douglas High School? Well, she is now speaking out. We want to share the video clip from her, which was done by Tim Tootin over at WBAL. And we're going to talk about teachers offering forgiveness and what does that look like. Folks, it's interesting because I spent the evening taking a look at some of the stats about what's been happening in this city. And I want to share some of them in the city, of course, and in this country, because I want to go a little bit broader than just Baltimore City, but also about what is happening around the country. In a new report published by the Education Trust, they found that 30.8% of all African American adults, 30.8%, have earned at least an associate's degree compared to 47.1% of white American adults. So right now, the way we're looking at it is white Americans are still outpacing Black Americans when it comes to getting their associate degrees. Nearly 22% of Black Americans have bachelor's degrees or higher, that's Black American adults, compared to 37% of white adults. And 7.8% of Black adults hold a graduate degree compared to 13.4% of white adults. So what that really means is that we're still being outpaced when it comes to getting degrees. But what surprised me was not that, because I'm aware that we are overcoming some amazingly huge hurdles as Black folks in this country as we work towards getting more education, getting more BA and BS degrees, getting more master's degrees, getting more associate degrees, getting more PhDs, and we're overcoming some incredible hurdles. What surprised me in the data is the educational gap between Black women and Black men. That's what was surprising to me. In the 2015-2016 academic year, Black women earned 85,616 associate's degrees. This is 66.7% of all associate degrees awarded to African Americans. That means that Black men only earned, in that point, when you look at it, less than 30% of the associate degrees. The gender gap was even smaller for bachelor's degrees awards. Black women earned 64.1% of all BA and BS degrees awarded to African Americans. This is the part that is shocking. The gender gap grows larger for master's degrees. Nearly 70% of all master's degrees awarded to African Americans in the 2015-2016 academic year were earned by Black women. During that same time period, there were only about 7,000 African Americans who earned doctoral degrees in professional fields such as medicine, law, dentistry, veterinary medicine. Black women earned almost 65% of that. And when you look at getting your PhD, another 5,000 African Americans earned that. Out of that percent, just about 70% were earned by African American women. That is shocking. So not only is there a racial gap in terms of white Americans and Hispanic Americans and Black Americans in getting degrees, there's also a gender gap within the Black community that Black women are far outpacing our young Black men when it comes to getting these degrees. Joining me to talk about this and to help me make some sense of it before we go into our conversation about what happened last night at the school board meeting is Dr. Joseph Flynn. He's an associate professor of curriculum and instruction at Northern Illinois University. His work centers on the intersection of race, curriculum, and social justice. He's the author of White Fatigue, Rethinking Resistance for Social Justice, which is currently available on Amazon.com. Dr. Flynn, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm fine. I appreciate you joining us. Can you help us make sense in all of your work in education and looking at racism, but also looking at the ways in which African-American men in so many ways are being outpaced in terms of getting degrees by African-American women? Can you help us make sense of what's happening in education that leads us to believe that there's a miseducation taking place among our young African-American men?
Well, the lack of Black males in education and higher education it's just staggering. I mean, I've been in higher ed for 11 years now, and in education specifically, and I can tell you, I think I can count the number of Black males I've had, and I believe I've only chaired one dissertation by a Black male. And so definitely Black women are far outpacing their Black male counterparts. I think a part of the problem is recruitment. I think a part of the problem is a sense of urgency and the difference between the daily lives of Black women compared to Black men. I think that this inherent, or I'm not really quite sure I want to word this because I don't want it to come off offensively, but I feel like there's something inside us Black males from time to time that makes it difficult for us to see ourselves in these particular spaces. A sense of perhaps internalized dominance through, decades of racist actions from educators at all levels of education. If you have a really bad experience in K-12 education, the last thing you want to do is continue that experience in higher education. And that has a tendency to deter a lot of folks from even trying to go for an advanced degree. And that experience in and of itself is something that we all need to do something about.
Now, what's interesting is that we struggle with this a lot here in Baltimore City because we're trying to think about ways that we can educate our young African-American men, ways that are revolutionary, ways that talk about building resistance, ways that teach them how to be able to navigate their way through white America constantly under the white gaze. Well, what are some of the things that you would suggest that parents could potentially do at home if raising African-American young boys, and things that teachers should be able to do? Because I know you do a lot of work in looking at resistance in social justice in the classroom.
Well, with parents, a little fast story here. I was teaching on the south side of Chicago early in my career, and the school was literally about 20 blocks away from the Museum of the Field Museum of Natural History. This was in Chicago. Field Museum of Natural History, the Art Institute, Adler Planetarium, all these wonderful museums that also all had free days. And so one day I had asked the students if I just made some offhand comment about, going to the museum of the Art Institute, rather. And the students looked at me like I was from Mars. Like, all these young Black kids had never been to these museums. They had never really been outside of their own neighborhoods and communities. So I think it becomes really important that parents of Black kids do the best they can to provide opportunities for their children to see things outside the neighborhood. Take advantage of free museum days. Get involved with community organization and community agencies that are dedicated to advancing the educational horizons of Black kids. Get involved involved with the school. And I recognize that there are hurdles to that, right? It's about access. It's about knowing where you can go for resources and so on and so forth. So plugging into community organizations, the church you attend, listening to what other folks have to say, you know, friends and neighbors, et cetera, and definitely showing up at school whenever you can, or even calling the school on a lunch break or what have you, to talk to principals and teachers and other officials in your child's school, to not only show that you're interested in your child's educational opportunities, but to pick their brains about, you know, where can I get my child resources? And I think, you know, I was blessed because my parents, especially my mom, she was always down at the school, you know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Not just when I was being a knucklehead, right? And she was always getting me involved in tutoring programs. And, you know, all those things came through community action agencies. And so I think it becomes really important to do that. You know, another really upfront, straightforward thing that can be done that doesn't cost money is take your kids to the library.
Right.
Show kids books.
Mm-hmm.
Show them how powerful books are. Watch documentaries on PBS. You know, and I know that all sounds kind of corny and everything,
right,
but I can tell you this: we sit our child down from time to time to watch like Henry Louis Gates documentaries on PBS about, you know, Black history and about
right,
Black culture, and you know, he'll be resistant for a little bit, but then after a while, he'll get into it and he'll start asking us questions because he knows we work with that kind of stuff. And so I think, you know, just showing kids that, number one, being smart and being engaged academically is not a bad thing. It's the best thing that you can do because it provides opportunities for your future. And I think that when we hold that example up to our kids and hold that high expectation up to our kids will respond, but we have to show them that there is that path out there and that path is for them, just like it's for everybody else.
I want to ask you one last question, Dr. Fun. I definitely appreciate your time. So we talk often about how long it would take to close the wealth gap. That if we look at the amount of money, the income of the average Black family versus the average white family, and they predicted it take about 210 years or so for the average Black family, where they stand right now at this moment. That's assuming that the average white family doesn't continue to go forward. If they stop where they are, it take about 210 years in terms of net worth in order to reach that level. Just in your opinion, if you just kind of think out loud for a minute, how long do you think it's going to take in this country for us to actually close the achievement opportunity gap? One, between white students and Black students, and then two, between Black young women and Black young men, to close that gap, both of them?
This is a generations fight.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the simple fact alone that I think to change a lot of these outcomes, we have to change our policies and our curriculum, which is a heavy road, is a tough road to hoe in and of itself. I'm remiss to give an actual number of years because, you know, I'm not a gambling man that way, and I can oftentimes be cynical about the United States. But with that being said, I think that what's most important is that we have to, as a community, continuously show our own brilliance and our own dedication to brilliance. You know, of course, a part of the miseducation of and about, you know, Black folk is that we somehow look at education as not important. And we know that that's not true because of our history with education, you know, from slaves learning how to read by candlelight under threat of death, all the way to kids struggling to get to school through gang zones. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so we have that dedication there, and it's essential that we always display that to people, and we get our parents involved in local school meetings and in-school conversations about curriculum, about their expectations as parents, and about what they feel the needs are for our kids. Now, so it will take a while.
Right.
You know, I'm not under any illusions, But at the same time, excuse me, if we are not always engaged in that process to our fullest abilities, then we're definitely going to continuously be left behind. And we always want to have the fate of ourselves in our own hands. Now, when it comes to the gap between Black females and Black males graduating from college, we got to get recruitment out there, and we have to get mentors and role models and communities. And I don't think that that's the only thing that has to happen, but I think there's a lot to be said about the notion that if you don't see yourself reflected somewhere, you're going to be less likely to be engaged in it. And so making sure that professors like me, so I'm speaking to me, myself and my own community, as well as doctors and lawyers, stockbrokers, accountants, et cetera, on down the line, are getting involved in communities and showing kids that you too can do this, you know. And I think that we have to really take a long, hard look at what is happening with the spirit of Black men. And we have to think about how can we look within ourselves and stand up to any spurious constructions of what it means to be a Black male in America. We have to define that for ourselves. And so we have to be the ones that are on the front lines of stopping violent behavior, stopping criminal behavior, stopping self-defeating behavior in any way, shape, or form, so that we can move forward as a people. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Dr. Joseph Flynn, Associate Professor of Curriculum Instruction at Northern Illinois University. He's the author of the book, White Fatigue, Rethinking Resistance for Social Justice. It's available on Amazon.com. Dr. Flynn, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Kay. You take care.
You too. So, folks, this takes us right into our discussion about what happened last night. As we drill down deep into Banneker Blake Academy, I just thought it was important for us to take a moment, kind of do a bird's eye view of what's happening with education and the education achievement and opportunity gap for Black males and females happening throughout this country. And then let's drill down deep into what's going on here in Baltimore City. I have on the phone with me former Councilman Carl Stokes, along with Tanya Bridges, a parent of a student attending Banneker Blake Academy. Miss Bridges and Carl Stokes, how are you, sir?
Hi, how are you?
Well, hi, Kay. Thank you for having it back on again, Doc.
I'm so happy that you came on. And I know I still want to start, Carl, with giving us an update on what happened last night. And then I want to spend the rest of my time with you. I know we have a little time, which I'm excited about, talking about exactly what happened. Because on the surface, it's, they closed a school that's focused on educating African-American middle school boys. But when you drill deeper, there are some real issues and concerns that came out that I want to talk about and talk through. So Carl, what happened last night?
Well, first of all, total disrespect for the community. We had, I don't know, maybe 200, 300 people there. Only maybe 50 or so were actually allowed to come into the room where the discussion was going on. The others were sent to the second and third floors, sit in the room and watch a monitor. And could not represent themselves downstairs. They gave the school, not the school community, but the school 4 minutes to present their case to keep the school open. 4 minutes. They didn't allow any of our students, scholars to talk. They didn't allow our parents to talk. They didn't allow the larger community to speak. They were there to speak to the school board, but the school board was not willing to listen to them last night. 4 minutes for the headmistress and myself, and no minutes at all for the school community. None. Not even, couldn't take a scholar, one student, and let one student speak. So totally disrespectful in terms of the school and the community.
Now, I thought that if you came down to the school board meeting, as I understand it, if you sign up, you're able to speak. Did they not even allow any signups last night?
They let 10 people sign up.
Okay.
And not out. Let me say this: That's for anybody to speak up. If you're selling a vacuum cleaner and you want to present to the school board, you can sign on that list.
So it's not just subject specific signups. It's just one big list. Okay.
One big list. And people who know this, that only 10 people are going to be allowed to sign the list, because they tell you come down at 4:30 to sign up. That's what our parents heard. And people get there at 4 o'clock or 3:45 and they sign the list. Or they don't sign the list then, but they get in line
to sign the list.
And then at 4:30, the first 10 people in line are allowed to sign the list. And so my people came down, most of our people came down, frankly, around 4:15 or so. And they were already too late to get in the list.
Because they were coming from work, probably picking their I understand that. And so the final decision, just to be clear, was what? Share it with us here, please.
The final decision was 7-0. 2 members had left by the time they voted. By the way, they delayed the vote for almost an hour and a half, I think, so that the room would clear, so that when they made the final vote, that the actual citizens and the students and parents, that families that this affected would not be in the room. So they voted after 8 o'clock, a meeting that started at 5 o'clock, and they voted 7-0 to close the school.
So not one person on the school board voted to keep Banneker Blake Academy open. Not one.
No, not one. Not one. Not one. And again, according to their assessment of the school, we are better than 5 out of 6 schools. 5 out of 6.
You are better than 5 out of 6 schools, and yet the decision was to close it. Let me ask Tanya Bridges. Let me pull you into this conversation. Okay. Now, I know that you have a child. We actually, that's our hard break. We're going to take a break. But Tanya, when we come back from the break, I want to ask you if you can talk to me about the impact that you think this is going to have on your son's education and the ways in which Banneker Blake Academy has helped him. Folks, we're going to talk about that when we come back from the break. We're going to open up the phones, 410-319-8888. Lucille and Paul, I want to hear from you. We're talking about educating again what's going on here in this city when it comes to our African-American young males and females. We want to talk about that when we return. This is Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead. Stay with us.
WEAA on Assignment, a look at the arts, culture, and enterprise in and around our city. Recorded and produced by students of the School of Global Journalism and Communication at Morgan State University. Support for WEAA on Assignment comes from PNC.
Members of Morgan State University's Marching Machine are excited to be honored with the opportunity to march in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, Thanksgiving Day 2019. Marching band director Melvin Miles announced the news during homecoming, and it has since shined a light on the band.
I'm excited in how the university is responding to it. The university is embracing it. They're very excited about it. Everybody's responding to it very favorably. Everywhere we go, or when students go, they're getting that nod of approval that it's a big deal, it's a big thing. And so we're kind of excited about it, kind of stoked.
Arthur Crowner, a freshman to Morgan State University and a trumpeter of the Bear Band, has dreamed about this day since he was a kid.
I got so excited because I honestly used to talk about that with my parents. One day I'm going to be up there, but this is soon. It's like really close now.
Although she won't be participating, senior and trumpeter Kayla Johnson isn't bitter. Instead, she's just as happy and proud for her bandmates.
Oh man, it was amazing. It was crazy. To know that people start to recognize all the hard work and dedication that we've been putting into this band program for the last 5 years. I've definitely seen the band grow since I've been here. I was really excited. And actually, I was sad that I couldn't march next year because I'll be gone.
With an entire year ahead and the anticipation of millions of eyes on them, Miles and his marching machine have begun practices with a 2019 goal in mind.
We will be reminding people, these are the things we got to achieve for that. We've got a date where we're going to be built to a whole bunch of people that don't get to see us. And so we need to make sure that we start out the semester, start out the year working real hard to be really sharp in every kind of way.
I'm Misha McDonald with WEAA on assignment.
This has been an installment of WEAA on Assignment with support from PNC.
Your source for cool jazz and more. WEAA 88.9 FM, the voice of the community.
Welcome back to Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Watts Whitehead. Folks, we are talking about education and the impact of our educational decisions on our African-American males and females, our young men and young women on this country. We've laid out what the graduation rates are and the huge racial gap that exists between white Americans and Black Americans in education, and then drilling down even deeper into the huge gap that exists between African-American young males and African-American young females when it comes to getting degrees. African-American young women are outpacing African-American young men in terms of getting AAs, BAs, masters, PhDs at a rate of almost 60 to 65%. That is outrageous. But we know it doesn't start in college. It starts much sooner than that. And we're talking about one school in particular. The decision was made to close the school. I have Tanya Bridges on with me. Tanya, how are you? Thank you for staying with us.
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So before we went to break, I just wanted to ask you about your feelings around the decision. How has Banneker Blake Academy helped your son? And why do you think the school was closed?
Banneker Blake has helped my son tremendously. He's reading at a faster speed. He's comprehending more. He's into building. He wants to be a gamer. They took him on a field trip to Morgan. He now wants to go to either Morgan or Harvard. He's 11 years old. Before Banneker Blake, we didn't think about that. It was like community college, and you can still be something great. But now with Banneker Blake, it's like we're seeing far. He said he's going to be an author because his writing skills have picked up. It's given him confidence. He likes the fact that there's men in the school because it's teaching him how to be a man. I'm a single parent mom, and there's no male role model in his life other than what he gets at that school. And it's teaching them how a man should act, how a man should respond to certain situations. And he's bringing it home with him. He's bringing it home. He's telling me about it. He's teaching me. He told me he wanted to be a gamer. I had to ask him, what is a gamer? What does a gamer do? He said, well, at school, they teach us all this. And he say there are classes that they'll be able to take that's going to show them how they can make money while they're still in middle school.
Right.
My son has a snowball stand in the summertime. He's used to making money. And when he heard that in middle school you can make money, and it made school more exciting to him.
Well, let me ask you this, Tanya, because I mean, just the idea that all these wonderful things are happening at this school focused on African-American young male middle school students. And when I was there today, because I did visit the school this morning, I also saw a few students who were not of color as well. What year is your son at Banneker Blake, and what are the next steps here?
Repeat that last part. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what year is your son, and then what are the next steps for you coming out of this process here?
Okay, he's in the 6th grade. This is his first year there. This was a transition from elementary school to middle school. Also, the paperwork I received to get him at that school came from the board at North Avenue.
Right.
This school was listed highly. You know, I was hoping and praying that he gets accepted in a school that has so many technology points going on. Now he's accepted. Now you're telling him he can't be what he want to be.
Wow.
It's heartbreaking because it's like, where am I going to search around in the city and find a school that's going to give him what he's been getting. His mind has opened up. I don't know what a gamer is.
Right.
I don't know how to make an app, but my son can tell you because he learned that in school.
Wow.
He tries to teach me, but I'm old school. So,
no, I get that. I get that. Thank you so much, Tanya Bridges, the parent of a Banneker Blake Academy. We definitely want to follow up with you, Miss Bridges, because we want to know what the next step is for your son coming out of Banneker Blake, because he'll be going somewhere differently next year.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully this appeal process will work and he'll be at Banneker Blake. But what I'm looking at now is gaining a county address, because we know the county schools get far more better education than being in Baltimore City public schools. So it's like now we have to look for a county address.
Right. In order to open up those options. And we should have those options available to us in the city, not just with Banneker Blake. I know we have some citywide middle schools. I'm thinking about, Mount Royal and Hamilton and City Neighbors and Roland Park Elementary Middle School. Like, there are options here, but we want to be clear. The options are limited. It doesn't meet the need of every child. Thank you so much, Ms. Bridges. I know, Carl Stokes, you're going to stay on the phone with us for a while.
I also have Calvin Robinson in the car. He's the student if you would like to speak with him, because he can tell you far about what his dreams are and his aspirations for staying at this school.
Okay, and Carl Robinson is what year is a student?
Calvin Robinson, this is his first year.
Okay, put him on the phone.
Okay, hold on. Calvin Robinson.
Hello.
Hi, Calvin. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm doing well. This is Dr. K. And first, I just want to welcome you to Today with Dr. K. I was at your school today, Calvin, and I thought it was very interesting. I was there in the morning. I was there for the breakfast lineup when they had all of you on the wall talking to you about your uniform, about tucking in your shirts and making sure everybody had on the right tie and the right shoes. Can you tell me the impact that Banneker Blake has had on your life as a sixth grader?
The impact?
Yes. How has it been there for you?
They've helped me learn how to write better, read better, understand more stuff in books. And they've expanded my brain, my learning curriculum.
Now, what has it been like? Because I know what I saw this morning is there are a lot of African-American men in the school as teachers and helping you boys to line up. I saw them helping you with your ties this morning. How has that been, having so many African-American males as role models in your life in the building?
Well, it's a lot of men role models in the building, so that helps us understand, because some people don't have a lot of men role models in their life. Like, some children's dads can be in prison or dead. So that really helps us. And a gym teacher is one of them. And he says that y'all need a male role model because y'all have your moms and grandmas baby you.
So tell me, now let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask you two more questions before you go. So if you had an opportunity to sit down with Dr. Santelises, with the CEO of the school board, she's the one that, ultimately put this decision forward to close your school. If you had an opportunity to talk to her, what would you tell her?
What would I tell her?
Yes.
I would tell her that this school needs a chance to stay open, because this is a great school. I don't know why y'all want to close it.
And then my last question is for you, Calvin. For any young African-American males who are listening to you in sixth grade and younger, fifth grade and fourth grade.
Like to talk to you.
Okay, hold on. Before you go, Calvin, if you were to give a message to other young African-American males in this city, what would you tell them?
I would say, don't give up on your dreams. Anything is possible. Don't let anybody tell you different.
Thank you so much, Calvin Robertson. He is a sixth grade student at Banneker Blake Academy. Thank you for your time, Calvin. So I'm back with Carl Stokes. Carl, thank you for holding on.
Of course. Hi, Dr. K. Thank you. Calvin is a great ambassador for the school.
He absolutely is. He just sounds brilliant and wonderful. And it's just amazing.
And uncoached. We didn't coach him here. He is who he is.
Well, that's what I saw in the hallways this morning. I saw a lot of brilliance untapped walking around the school building.
Right.
But I just want to kind of drill down, and we have a lot of calls. So, folks, I am going to open up the line. Let me ask Carl Stokes one question, and then Paul, Lucille, El Shaka, Rahan, Hannibal, L, and Lance, I'm coming straight to you. But Carl, when I was taking a look at the articles, and trying to figure out why this school was closed. And a school that seems to be raising the proficiency level of African-American males. But I listened to that school board meeting last night, and I'm trying to get a strong handle on exactly what the points were. They said there were 3 areas that I heard them say: financial mismanagement, and so I want to get an idea of what exactly were they talking about. Governance problems, and so I want to talk about that, and the special ed piece, which is the huge piece that they kept drilling down on, because they didn't just pick your school out of the blue to close. There were some specific things. So can you take us through kind of what these big 3 things is they were talking about?
Of course, and there may be some disagreement over they didn't pick the school out of the blue to pick on. But having said that, so when they say financial mismanagement, that is such a disingenuous phrase to use. Every audit that the school has had has been clean. It has been a perfect audit. There have been no internal management issues. There have been no letters of concern. Every audit that we've had has been a clean audit. And we have a letter from our auditor saying this school is well managed. That letter went to the school board. I guess I should put it out into the public, that said that this school is well managed, as a matter of fact, because they tried to make an issue of our management yesterday. And which all I have to say is, you're right. The only thing we can do is manage academic excellence. That's it, right? But as you know, I am in the school. You may hear interruptions now and then.
No problem. So the financial mismanagement piece you're saying is incorrect. That you passed the audit with flying colors.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what they mean is that they said to us after the fact, because it's not in the contract, that they wanted us to have more money in the bank, more cash on hand at the end of the year.
Right.
Of course, we argued, why would we end the year with hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, which meant that we didn't spend it on children and programming and field trips, etc. But okay,
so, I got that part. So how about the governance piece? What was that about?
The governance piece actually does tie into the special ed piece. In year two, we're starting our 4th year. In year 2, we had weak special ed administration in the school, and we missed some deadlines. We take full ownership that we were weak in following all of the guidelines and deadlines in year 2. However, in year 3, we fixed it. In year 1, we were good. So we had an operation in year 2, not a trend, just an aberration. And so they were saying that we needed to fix our governance in terms of tightening administration in the school. And we hired a great principal.
Miss Davis, I met her this morning.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And she's rated excellent by the school system. She's been a 6-year principal. We hired a previous school principal who has retired from administration, who's now in our building running our Title I program and teaching. So great support for the principal. And then we picked from the DC Charter School administration a 3rd individual, a gentleman who is our Dean of Student Support. And he's also, and then we have the greatest IEP chair who spoke so well last night.
I saw her. So you do have someone in place now, and you have had that person in place since year 3. So year 2 was a year where you were missing deadlines, dealing with special education, and which dealt with your governance, but you focused on tightening it up. And even with that in place, the decision was still made last night.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about that. We have a number of people on hold. I want to open up the phone lines, 410-319-8888. I have Lucille on from Northwest Baltimore. Lucille, welcome to the show. You have both myself and former Councilman Carl Stokes on the line.
Good evening, Dr. K.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Stokes.
Hi, Lucille. Hello. How are you?
It just brings tears to my eyes when I think of the Baltimore City school system from which I graduated from the best high school in the city, Western. But my father graduated from Douglas back in 41. I think that's when he graduated, when that was the only school for people of color. And it's a shame. It seems just like everything else in the city, those in power, I'm not talking about you, Mr. Stokes, seem to be throwing the African American community under the bus. It's all about the green, because we know good and well educators do not pick or choose that profession to get rich. It's a love, it's a calling. And that means administration, I know they have books to balance and all that, but when we have people like Mr. Patterson, Mrs. Penderhughes, they cared about the quality of education our children received. And they put the children first. They had fights on their hands, but then you also had the parent support.
Right.
And it's a shame. It's a shame that, I don't know, I can't remember. I remember when she got the job, but when the superintendent got her job, what background she came from. But it seems like they have the mentality of like, I have mine and you've got yours to get.
Right.
And that's not the way it should be. When my father was growing up, he used to get in trouble a lot. Now, he was smart because he skipped 2 grades.
Right.
But he had a mentor. That mentor directed him. My father graduated from, at the time, Hampton Institute. So I'm saying that with the school, when you have Black, young, African-American young men who are being directed in a path so that they can succeed, and to pull that from under them, that means that you have no intentions of helping our children.
Thank you so much, Lucille. I appreciate you. We have Paul from West Baltimore. Paul, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call, Dr. K. Councilman, I just want to, I want to get to the bottom of everything. Here's where I'm at. Forget about everybody else, the school system. How much will it cost to keep this thing operating? And how can we help raise money to make it happen? Now, listen to this. I am a pastor. I do have a church. It's not the biggest church in Baltimore, but I do have members. I know other pastors. It's time for us, people of color, to stop throwing our hands out, and it's time for us to help our babies. Now, every listener on here, every day they call up Dr. K, we worry, we want to know what can we do to help our community. Well, here's a start right now. Right. The most important thing, educating our babies. Find out what you can do. Let me ask you this. How much yearly, not being into your business, will it cost to run one of these schools? How much? $300,000? Is that what I thought I heard you say?
No. It would take, we presently have a budget of $2.1 million. And to do it even stronger, better, we would be closer to $3.5 million to run the school in a manner that we think works. That would increase the hours that our students would be in the school. It would take care of all of our after-school programming, our Saturday programming, the field trips, et cetera. Right now, we operate at about $2.1 million. That's all of our staff, our faculty, cleaning the building, paying the rent for the building, et cetera. So I would say that a good round number is $3 to $3.5 million to run a school such as this. We would become a private school, obviously. And if we're going to operate as a free private school, most, as you know, parochial and private schools have a cost. I do know one that is so well endowed that there's no cost. That's St. Ignatius downtown. But most have a cost. So that would be the number that it would take.
Between $3 and $3.5 million is what is needed to keep this. And that is your yearly spend out the pocket. This is what it would take to keep a school like, and this is just for middle school. We're only talking 6th to 8th grade.
Right.
With roughly how many students? 90 students, 100 students? Like, what are you talking about?
No, it would be about 250 students.
About 250 students. All right, so Paul, you got that. 250 African-American young males, 6th to 8th graders, to keep them in a school like Banneker Blake and to give them the highest level of services to meet their needs, which to me, Carl, includes wraparound services, counseling for dealing with neighborhood violence. All of that's included. Would be about $3 to $3.5 million. Paul, are you going to drop the check off down here, or?
I love that.
Well, put it this way, I'm willing to get involved to try to help the process. I mean, we got, look, $3 million is nothing for our African-American community throughout the world to spend how many trillion?
$1.4 trillion. You know, I know that amount.
every Muslim, every Christian,
Yes.
every whatever, it don't matter. Everybody can drop money. All we need is the airtime and space to start raising the money to make it happen. Put it out there and let everybody know exactly what these oppressors are doing to our babies. It's time for us to stop asking, and it's time for us to start finding our own resources.
Okay, Paul, hold on. So what I'm going to do, Paul, don't hang up. Carl, I'm going to get Paul's contact information for you because that is how we
Great.
get started. I have
Thank you.
Apache on the phone. Apache attended the meeting last night. How are you, Apache?
Okay, I'm beside myself, Dr. K. I went to that meeting because of the last thing you said before your show hung up yesterday. And I was on North Avenue. I happened to be on North Avenue when you said that. I didn't even know what the meeting was about.
Jordan and the rally gathered outside.
Can you hear me?
I don't know what. Can you mute Carl Stokes?
Yeah, I will do that. When your caller's talking, I will mute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, go ahead, Apache.
Can you hear me clearly now?
I can hear you clearly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I happened to be on North Avenue when you said, go to the school board meeting, and I didn't hear your whole show yesterday. So I went to the school board meeting. I didn't know really what the agenda was, and I got my little yellow and burgundy T-shirt, and I said, okay, well, this is the agenda. This is the fight, okay? and I was appalled because I sat there listening to these parents, these educators, these people like you have on there, the gentleman you have on there, impassioned about the youth in Baltimore and trying to solve the issues, specifically of the vulnerable youth in Baltimore. And the cavalier attitude that the school board had. Now, this is an outside observer, okay? This is somebody who just came in and I'm just watching, right?
Right.
They reduced it down. Let me tell you what they reduced it down, because I heard you ask them the point. They reduced it down to 9 special education students who might have not gotten all of the services.
So you're saying the way they position this, they close this school that's raising achievement levels for African-American young males because of 9 students.
Yes, because of 9 students. And then that was one issue. That went through the special education. That was their big issue with the special education. Because I stayed there for the whole show. Okay. And a lot of people left, like you said. Everybody left, after they put the agenda towards the end as far as their vote. And the lady even said, the commissioner said, I did that on purpose.
Wow.
She said, I did that. It was a reason why I did that. She never said what the reason was. But she said it was the reason why I did that. And, so when she started going over the agenda, they had her counsel come up and go over everything, tried to refute everything that everybody else has said. And it was really led down to just her. I think her name was Victoria or Valerie or something like that. It was led down to the information that she presented to counter everything else, the community and everything else that everybody else said. And it was down to 4 points. 2 of the points was progress, even according to her own charts. It was progress made. And one of them was financial. She said progress was made, right? But on the special education, it was the 9 students she talked about. And then on the governance, it was the gentleman that was speaking. I think it was the guy that was on the phone. And they reduced it. Look, they said, Dr. K, they said when they was talking about him and the staffing issue that happened in the second year too, one of the commissioners brought up his history and said, oh, well, you've had problems in the past. And it became that. That is the governance issue we're talking about.
Wow. Okay.
So it wasn't about what's going on now. It was about their personal agenda that they had against him, which was completely unfair. Because we're talking about the students that's going to ultimately
have to find another school. Yes.
Right. And right?
Yeah.
It came up, okay, well, what's going to happen? One of the commissioners said, well, it's not like this is the first time a school's been closed. They started it off with that, right?
Wow.
This is leading up to the vote. Not like the first time the school. So this is going to mentally prepare us for what we've already came here to do. And I believe that they was already going to close that.
They already had a plan.
They already had a plan. Okay?
Well, I'm going to stop you there. Apache, thank you for calling in. Apache attended the meeting last night, folks. And from his perspective, look at that. They came in with an attitude. We're already here to do the work, which is of closing the schools. Carl, let me ask you, did you also see the kind of cavalier attitude that Apache just pointed out? All right, Carl, when you get back in, let me know. I'm going to go into El Shaka Ra Hannibal L. How are you, sir?
Yes, good evening, Dr. K and
good evening.
Councilman Stokes. How are you? This is E. Shaka Ra Hannibal L.
Hello. So what do you think, E. Shaka Ra Hannibal L?
I want to hit a couple points.
Okay.
And number one, I want to deal with We know how this system and these people that's against us operate. They have meetings when people are at work or when they're getting off from work.
Right.
They have meetings at places that don't hold enough people that show support for what it is that they want to undo or whatever. It's just crazy that they don't let you testify.
Right.
Or they limit the number of people that can testify. That's
Right.
just like going to court and saying you can only have 3 witnesses when you have 50 witnesses.
Right.
That would help convince the jury that you're not guilty. So we already know that it's a done deal. That's why a lot of people like myself, I didn't go to the meeting. I went to the protest earlier in the day.
Right.
But when they had these hearings, the city government hearings, tax night, all these different things, we already know they already made up their mind.
Right.
That's and we keep playing and acting like we don't know that. That's what bothers me. But we know how they operate. Everything in this city that is pro-black, they either dismantle it, discontinue it, destroy it one way or another. The recreation centers, the libraries.
Right. Everything you're saying is
all the
correct.
different independent schools. One at a time, they keep knocking off the schools. Everything they work for, they keep knocking off.
Yes.
One at a time. One to get this
You're
here, get that there.
You're absolutely telling the truth. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop you there, Ishaq Arah, Hannibal L. Councilman Carl Stokes, are you back, sir? All right. Yes, you're back. So I just want to ask you, did you also see the cavalier attitude that Apache was talking about last night? We seem to have lost Councilman Stokes. I don't know what's going on the phone. I apologize, folks, for what's happening. We will get that fixed, I assure you. We have Gina on the phone from Towson. Gina's a former educator. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling.
Well, I'm going to take the opposite position. And the reason why is because I taught middle school for over 10 years in Baltimore City, and I am a parent of 2 African-American boys. And I do not rely on any school system to educate my children solely. It's my responsibility.
Okay.
I need to be all the way involved. And I've yet to hear anybody mention the fact that we have so many parents who are not involved.
Right.
You can't send any child to any school and put it all in the hands of an educator. It's unfair. They didn't have those children. You did.
No, I'm laughing only because I agree with you, Gina. I agree with you that there's some responsibility for parents here too.
So we have to understand that, and I can definitively say, if you go into the Gardensville area of Baltimore City, those children who are now upwards of 30 years old, they know who I am. And granted, I'm not a man. I can't teach them how to be a man, but I can show them how to tie a necktie. I can show them how to put their belt on correctly. I can talk to them, and I can provide them with the tools and resources so that they can be upstanding citizens. And I think it is important for them to have a female perspective so that they can know how to treat women. Yes, you need to learn how to be a man, but it takes a village. And
all right, now, Gina, I'm going to stop you there, but I want to have you hold on if you can. I'd love to have you hold on the break and then come and tell us the rest. Folks, I got to leave it here for just a moment. This is Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead. Quick update from MTA. Let's talk about this some more on the other side.
Good afternoon. On the Penn line of the MARC system, all trains are running on time as so far this afternoon. Local link bus diversions because of construction include the 79 westbound diverted at Wakefield and Fairview, 79 eastbound diverted at Forest Park and Dickey Hill. The 34 southbound is diverted at Forest Park and Hillsdale, and 34 northbound diverted at Forest Park and Windsor Mill. We have no problems right now on the MTA commuter buses. The light rail link is running on time, as is the Metro subway link. For the MTA Transit team, I'm Ken Berger on 88.9 FM WEAA, the voice of the community.
You are invited to the Oldies But Goodies Memory Lane Meet and Greet. It's time to put the names with the faces of all those that enjoy the Oldies But Goodies extravaganza. So let's get together, have breakfast, and talk music and memories on Saturday, November 17th, right here at WEAA between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. And guess what? Breakfast
celebrating 40 years of broadcasting. Morgan State University Public Radio, 88.9 WEAA FM and HD1, Baltimore. Celebrating 40 years of broadcasting. Morgan State University Public Radio. 88.9 WEAA FM and HD1. Baltimore.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. In Northern California, the Camp Fire has claimed at least 48 lives, and officials say that number is likely to rise. Alex Emsley of member station KQED is in fire-ravaged Butte County, where the sheriff is asking for the public's help to pare down the list of more than 100 missing people.
Locating the missing has been a difficult task, as officials also comb the burned area for human remains. Sheriff Corey Honey has put out a list of missing people.
We're going to ask members of the public to look at the list to determine whether or not they are on it. There are people out there who their loved ones suspect that they're missing or they're unaccounted for, but they don't, in fact, know that someone is looking for them.
Some 52,000 people have been forced from their homes. Efforts to find and identify the dead are expected to soon get a boost from 100 additional National Guard troops, and coroners are rolling out a rapid DNA identification system. For NPR News, I'm Alex Emsley in Chico, California.
And at least 2 people are dead in fires in Southern California. President Trump spoke by phone with California's Governor Jerry Brown today, praising firefighters and first responders for doing an incredible job fighting the blazes. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis visited active duty troops today in Texas along the Mexican border, telling reporters they're supporting the U.S. Border Patrol and are unlikely to have any contact with migrants. NPR's Tom Bowman has more.
Secretary Mattis is defending the deployment of nearly 6,000 soldiers and Marines along the southern edge of Texas, California, and Arizona against charges it was a waste of money and unnecessary. He said the Department of Homeland Security requested the Pentagon's help.
I think that it's very clear that support to Border Police, our Border Patrol, is necessary right now. If they come to me and say, we do not have the people to put in barbed wire, we don't have the capability to use helicopters and move people, we don't have the helicopters.
Mattis said it's possible the active duty troops could grow by another 1,000. He said the Pentagon is still figuring out the cost of the total deployment. Tom Bowman, NPR News, Washington.
In an emergency meeting today, British Prime Minister Theresa May's cabinet has approved a deal to exit the European Union. May says the Brexit deal is in the best interests of the UK, but noted there would be difficult days ahead.
The choice was this deal, which enables us to take back control and to build a brighter future for our country, or going back to square one.
May says the deal will bring back control of Britain's money, restore order and free movement, and protect jobs. The British Parliament still has to approve the plan. Wall Street lower just before the closing bell. The Dow down 205 points. The Nasdaq down 64. The S&P 500 down 20 points. For the Dow, that's down 0.8 of a point. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Heavy volume on the inner loop of 695 between 95 and Security Boulevard, and again between 83 and Hartford Road. Outer loop stop and go between Liberty Road and Emerson Avenue. Travel along eastbound 70, you'll be backed up between the Patapsco River Bridge and 695. Northbound 95, you'll be jammed off and on between 695 and the Fort McHenry Tunnel, and you'll be slow again between 32 and 100. Southbound 97 is jammed, left lane is blocked, and you'll be stop and go from Benfield Boulevard. Westbound 100, stop and go between Arundel Mills Boulevard and Mark Station at Dorsey. Travel along the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. Expect delays if you're traveling northbound between 198 and 175, and southbound is sluggish between 198 and Powder Mill Road. If you're headed 895 northbound, expect delays between Frankfort Avenue and the Harbor Tunnel, and a crash reported if you're traveling in Baltimore City at Druid Hill Avenue, north of West North Avenue, and another crash at Security Boulevard at North Rolling Road. This report is sponsored by Unbound.org. For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Margot Burr with your Baltimore area traffic.
Support for WEAA Traffic and MTA Report is provided by Indeed.com. More information available at Indeed.com/hire.
88.9 FM reminds you that the views expressed on WEAA programs are those of participants and not necessarily those of Morgan State University, the staff, management, or underwriters of Baltimore's home for cool jazz. WEAA 88.9 FM.
Welcome back to Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Watts Whitehead. Folks, it's American Education Week, and we thought it was important to wrap up some of the educational stories that we've been talking about. One is about Banneker Blake Academy. We covered yesterday how they were going down to the school board to make a request to keep their school open. It's a charter school that's set up for educating middle school students, African-American males in particular. So, unfortunately, last night, the school board, in a vote of 7-0, voted to close Banneker Blake. Now, understand, folks, this is in a city where we do have a wealth gap. We do have an achievement opportunity gap within a country where we see a huge wealth gap and a huge achievement opportunity gap between white students and black students, and between white male students, black male students, and all the way down the line. That there's an achievement and opportunity gap that exists. And right now, African-American young men are being left behind. They're being outpaced by their counterparts who are coming from different racial groups, and they're being outpaced by women. I'm just looking at the facts. So closing a school focused on educating African-American young men is a huge deal. Because the question that somebody asked last night at the school board meeting, what are we going to do about our boys? I still have former Councilman Carl Stokes. He's one of the co-founders of Banneker Blake. He's still with us, along with Gina Towson. Gina from Towson, who's a former educator. Gina, you were speaking about the importance of parents drilling down deep and being able to speak into the lives of their children.
Yes, I was just making the point that while ideally it's awesome to have a school designed to focus on our young black boys, but the reality is everything starts at home. Mm-hmm. And while I understand there are, disparities, the children come from several different socioeconomic backgrounds. The bottom line is the parents play a vital role. And I didn't hear anyone emphasizing that part. And I am speaking from experience because I am the mother of 2 black boys who went to Baltimore City Public Schools. I still have one who is still in Baltimore City Public Schools. My oldest is now in college. However, I did not place their learning in anybody else's hands. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I'm responsible for it. So I need to reinforce what I don't think they're getting in school. And that doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take a college education to do it. Flashcards. Reading things in the grocery store, reading the back of canned goods, the back of things that are in your home. You just have to have the will to do it, and the creativity will come.
I appreciate you, Gina. Thank you so much. So, Carl, I want to come back to you. Can you talk a bit about parental involvement in Banneker Blake?
Well, as I mentioned last night, there were probably upwards of 200 to 300 people in the building, although 2/3 of them were not allowed to be a part of this hearing yesterday evening. So our parents have mobilized very quickly around this matter of keeping the school open. They came out last night. They've been in the school all day today asking, what can we do next? What should we do next? Should we write letters? Should we have a rally? And we're talking about that. And we're going to let the parents give input and more than input to design what steps we need to take community-wise next. We're going to go to meet with attorneys tomorrow and talk about our next steps in terms of appeal to the Maryland State School Board. But our parents have been very active around this issue of their children's education. And not wanting to have their children possibly have to go to a worse school, not a school that's better.
So what's the socioeconomic makeup of the families at your school?
80% of our students, like most of the city, are parents who are free and reduced lunches. Okay. And probably near that number also are in families that are impoverished or at best.
So about 80%. About 80%. We have a couple of folks chiming in from Facebook Live. I just want to kind of read some of their comments and bring them into the conversation. J. Ken Caston said Baltimore City needs an elected school board. The current members represent their personal agendas without accountability to the constituents. They vote according to the liking of the person who appointed them. Kenny Ebron said, it's sad when we as Black people have to fight with Black leaders to keep a Black school open to save our young gentlemen. They want to close the school down for the same problems that all the Baltimore City schools have. And then Nathan said, Dr. K is white folks' gatekeeper. Nathan, I just wanted to read yours because you have no idea who I am or what I have done. Nakia Rowe, I just had to be real clear. People need to have receipts. You can just Google me on that, Nathan. Nakia Rowe says Baltimore, again, she's chiming in, Carl. She's a former principal. She's also a school teacher, but she says we need a school board that is elected. Think about that. The board, nor the CEO, nor the cabinet are accountable to the community. Schools are closed every year with no focus on how it may impact kids. School systems should not be run like big businesses. Kids have their roots in their schools, and there should be a moratorium on school closing until they show the data.
Right.
Because I don't think that people, and this is what makes me so angry about the school board, not just about this decision in particular, Carl. I get angry because when these decisions are made, there seems to be no thought of the real impact on the most vulnerable part of our population. Those are the kids, the students. We speak for them. And it seems like we're not listening. We have Lance on the phone from Pasadena. Lance, how are you? Hello, Lance. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for holding on.
No longer in Pasadena. I'm in Baltimore now.
That's how he's like, I've been on hold so long. I have traveled the gamut here. So I want to thank you for coming from Pasadena to Baltimore. But I thank you for holding on, Lance. You're my biggest fan today.
Yeah, no problem. Not at all. But I guess the two comments I had, the first one is just to answer your question originally in the sense of like, what exactly is causing this disparity between Black males and Black women when it comes to education. And I think it's mainly based on the fact that you have two different, multiple different ways in which this can happen. But I think the two big issues in Baltimore is that a lot of the people a lot of the young Black men end up going to jail or anything like that, which keeps them from getting any type of financial aid. And before you even get to that big wall there, like I think I had mentioned it yesterday. I went to Baltimore City College High School, which is actually the best school in Baltimore.
Okay.
But,
yeah, I don't even get in that, but you know this, Carl. I don't even get into that fight at all.
I heard that. That's very wise of you. Very wise of you. But regardless of I went to that school, and I had technically no way of getting to school and being able to pay for it. So the military was my option. So when you think about that, I think like now the career field that I'm in now is environmental science or industrial hygiene. And it's a field that I didn't necessarily know was available to me and something that I could necessarily get into quickly without having to pay for, an exorbitant amount for an education. But I feel as though success is measured by exposure.
Right.
As you become more exposed to things, you become more enlightened to what is possible. You can strategize around what is in your way and find your success. But if you're continuously in a school system that doesn't necessarily give you the tools in totality, like, is it the Banneker Blake School?
Right.
If the school isn't providing you all these, accoutrements that isn't, how do I say, that amount to $1.2 million.
Right. Come on.
Then you're really not going to be able to understand that the whole sky is the limit thing is limiting you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And to bring that back to, I guess, to the school in particular, I think also the reason that there are less Black men in education is the special education part in particular.
Right.
Because when I was going to school, or I'm in school now, I had the option of choosing education as my career path. And I understand exactly what you're saying about it feeling as though it's more of a spiritual movement rather than a monetary movement. you go to education because you feel as though that's where you need to be and where you feel like you'll make the most impact. But on the other end of where I felt like I may not necessarily work out was the special education portion, because I do not associate with or have much interaction with those who have special education needs. And because of that, it deterred me from doing it, because I didn't necessarily know if I had the will and or the fortitude or patience to do so.
Right.
So I feel as though if there's any way that we can possibly figure out a way to where we can, and maybe in the schools themselves, have it to where it's less segregated and more, inclusive, to where you have to work with your special education colleagues, because that's essentially what they are.
To kind of close that gap. Thank you so much, Lance. I appreciate it. I know, Carl Stokes, you also have to go. We appreciate you. We want to stay connected. Please keep us updated on what's happening. Danica Blake, we will follow that this year, and we will lean in with you as we look to find the best solutions to educate African-American young men in this city. Closing schools is not the option. Building up schools, thereby building up our young men, that is the option that we want to take.
And thank you so much for having this issue in the forefront for years. It is our school at the moment, but it is Black education for Black children always, and you've always been there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carl Stokes. So Leon Bailey, don't hang up. We're going to keep talking. I want to just put this on the table. In 2016, according to the National Science Foundation, listen to this, folks. This is what's happening in our country. There were 1,660 people who received their PhDs in the fields of agricultural economics, fishing, wildlife biology, geophysics, seismology, paleontology, ocean and marine sciences, astronomy, atomic physics, nuclear physics, plasma physics, general physics, logic and topology, neuropsychology, physical and biological anthropology, applied linguistics, French, Italian, German, Latin American, literature, European history, and classics. 1,660 doctors were given out in those areas. Not one was earned by an African American. Not one. When you look at where we are, there is a gap. When you look at the field of engineering, only 4% of the engineering degrees the doctors received were earned by African Americans. That's thinking 100 people, 4 of them were Black. Think about that. When it comes to math, with all the doctorate degrees earned in math in this country, only 3.8% are awarded to African Americans in math and statistics, in computer science and engineering. So, folks, we got to figure out how we can change this reality, because engineering, math, and science, those are great equalizers. You go into those fields, it's not about your race. It's whether you can code and do the problems. And our young people are being locked out of these areas. And if they are young and Black and male, they are being further locked. They're talking about odds you have to overcome just to be able to get to the table. Remember, our African-American young men are not even at the table at this point. We're trying to get them in the room so the table's within their reach and where they can see the table and potentially see themselves at the table. That's what we're talking about today. It's American Education Week. 410-319-8888. We have Darren on the phone from Edgewood, Maryland. Darren, thank you for holding.
Thank you for having me, Dr. K. And I was just really hoping I could ask Mr. Stokes how willing over time would he be to step out on faith and let's try to fund this school with private funds from the community.
I do know he's definitely interested in that, which is why we're taking context. Yeah. Once you ask your other question, I want you to hold on. We got to get your information, because we will get the information to him.
Yes, ma'am. And the reason I asked that, because I think there should be some things that are kind of like sacred, like we just have to do some things on our own as progressive people. And I think they need a school for you were looking for a terminology, not boys or girls. How I think youth would be the appropriate terminology.
Yes, because I've been working on it, right?
Right. Our young African American youth. Yes. And I also think that we have even the opportunity to create some curriculum. Even if we just have 2 model schools in Maryland in that regard, and put that curriculum online so that our brothers and sisters other progressive brothers and sisters can obtain that curriculum. And I'm sure we have the money. I'm just not sure we have the will.
Yeah, that's what it is, Darren.
Yeah, I'm just sure that we spent the money that we spent just going to see Black Panther.
Come on,
and Snack,
3 and 4 and 5 times. Come on, dressing up the clothes we bought.
That school for a year and some.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started about how I was on this show, Darren, saying, you know, why don't we demand that film company that did Black Panther, because we know we're going to see it 5 and 6 times. How about we tell them to also put an engineering program in our community? How about fund something like that?
Nice.
Come on.
You know, but Dr. K, we got a forum right here, and we can make some things happen right here in Maryland. You know what I mean? And we spend a lot of money on foolishness.
We do.
And it's some things the government doesn't. We 13%. They don't have the political will to do what I think they find might be a danger. Educate these young progressive young men and women. But we have the will, and the 13%. We might not have the political power leverage to lift the weight, but we got the money.
No, we don't. And I just want to argue that's what we're talking about. I'm going to actually, Darren, make sure that I don't want you to hang up. We're going to get your contact information, because what you're saying, like, we have the money, but do we have the will? I just need to hear from people. If you don't think we should have a school for African-American males in this city, think about it, Darren. You know how many schools we have in the city, private, independent institutions that are same-sex preference? We have independent private schools for girls. We have independent private schools for boys, and they are thriving. Why can't we have one that is specifically focused on boys in our community? There's nothing wrong with that. So, Darren, hold on. We're going to get your information. We have Keisha on the phone. Keisha's a new caller from Randallstown. Keisha, how are you? Welcome to the family.
Oh, hi, Dr. K. How are you?
I'm doing well. You're my first new caller of the day.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Well, I just got off and I'm a nurse educator by trade. And I felt inclined to call in because this topic is so dear to me. I grew up in Baltimore City, and unfortunately, I just tuned in when you had a caller. She was a teacher, and she was asking about the parent involvement. Now, I'm a parent of 3 young men, and I know the importance of parent involvement. But when I grew up in Baltimore City, unfortunately, there were some psychosocial issues in my house, Dr. K. And, you know, your listeners and the teachers, they have to understand that sometimes the children don't have that support from parents.
Right.
And I'll tell you, like I told you, I am a nurse by trade, but I can tell you it was my teachers that pushed me along to get to nursing school. Unfortunately. And so, you know, that kind of touched dead to me, because I know initially and for the longest time it was not my parents.
Right.
And so I'm thankful for them teachers. Even in nursing school, when I got pregnant, it was a nursing teacher who brought me my homework that last year, so I could finish. So I'm very dear, and because I am a parent, I understand parent involvement. But I was appalled to hear that they wanted to close the school when the school seemed like it provided so much support for children, and we're talking about from underprivileged populations. So it's children who had the same experience as I had. And I also wanted to share that it's a good idea, and I'll be listening to what what we come up with as far as fundraising. Now, I don't have a platform. I'm not a pastor or anything like that.
Right.
But I'll be willing to, help to donate.
Then don't hang up. We're going to get your information too, Keisha. Thank you so much. We have, I'm saying, folks, because this is how we win, right? So we can talk about the issues in our community. We can talk about help. And my thing is, when you are willing and able to help, let's take your name on the spot. Let's pass it to Carl Stokes, because there can't be one person who does not believe that this is not an area that is worthy of our attention. I like what Darren said. Folks, we will get dressed up and we will go and see Panther multiple times. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love Panther as well. We're talking now about real life. We don't live in Wakanda. We live in Baltimore City. In Wakanda, we're lifting up Black folks. In Baltimore City, we're being torn down. In Wakanda, we're overeducating our kids. In Baltimore City, we are not. Let's live in the real world. And in the real world, we're going to have to push a little bit harder in order to change this reality, or we're going to have to pay for our sins later, because if we don't train the next generation is not going to be able to take the baton from us. Either way, we're going to be responsible. We have Nakia Rowe chiming again. She said the homicide rate alone, black male on black male violence, is enough of a justification for why we need exclusively for our boys. Kathy Evans says, I believe the disparity in educational opportunities will change when we begin to change our mindset as a people. More emphasis must be put on the value of academic excellence, which opens up so many other doors, including in entertainment, arts, and sports. I like including rather than or, because our children should be able to do it all. We have Leo Burrows on the phone from Bolton Hill. Leo, how are you?
Yes, Dr. K. Wise Whitehead, how you doing today?
I'm fine, sir. They closed at school.
I'm more than a little frustrated. I'm angry, and I'm going to try to contain my anger. But I must tell you that the mayor appoints the Board of School Commissioners these days.
Yes.
Bernard Jack Young is the president of City Council. I haven't heard him say anything. Sheriff John Anderson says he's the darling of education here, and he supports public schools. I don't hear a lot of black folks who are tenured politicians saying anything. And of course, I understand. I was at the rally the other day, not at the school board meeting, but I was at the rally in front of the schools the day before, supporting Carl Stokes and also supporting Dr. Cecil Contine Gray and Veris Lee, who run the NACA school, the Northwood Apple Community Academy, which has been in business 14 years. And that's co-ed, and they're trying to close that operation down as well. I think it's a travesty. I understand the resentment. When you talk about Black heritage and culture, and you frame it in the context of academic excellence and science, technology, engineering, and math, you're doing the right thing. And why we cannot embrace what Carl Stokes is doing and others.
Right.
He's not alone. Why we cannot grab a hold of that dream and make it happen is beyond my comprehension. We've got a legislative Black caucus in Annapolis. He's going to appeal to the state. That's fine. But ultimately, we're going to have to independently control our own schools. But if you're going to the state, the legislative Black caucus is going to have to say in January, when the General Assembly convenes, we will not move forward on any business, those 50 or 52 legislators, until we address the issue of independent Black schools, economic development, job training, and we can go on. Is the Black agenda going to be spoken to, or are we going to continue to be second class? Sonia Santalisa.
Now, I'm about to hold you. Leo Burrows, you know I love talking to you, but you can hold on. Hold on over the break. When we come back, I'm going to talk to Leo. I'm going to talk to Denise. Denise is a Baltimore City educator. She's right here in the city. And then Leon Bailey from Northeast Baltimore. Hold it right here, folks. You give me a call as well. 410-319-8888. The miseducation of our boys. We're back on that again.
You are invited to the Oldies But Goodies Memory Lane Meet and Greet. It's time to put the names with the faces of all those that enjoy the Oldies But Goodies extravaganza. So let's get together, have breakfast, and talk music and memories on Saturday, November 17th, right here at WEAA between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. And guess what? Breakfast is on me. Visit WEAA, enjoy the show live, and meet the other listeners who enjoy the classics, coffee, and conversation. Come visit me Saturday, November the 17th, and enjoy the Oldies But Goodies extravaganza in person right here at the WEAA studios. I'm Robert Shaheed, host of the Oldies But Goodies. You can RSVP at WEAA.org.
Peace, this is Faraji Muhammad. Tune into the cultural, academic, controversial, and always thought-provoking conversations happening Monday through Friday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on For the Culture. We got those conversations that will get you talking, thinking, and laughing wherever you are. So ride with me weeknights from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. with For the Culture here on your source for cool jazz and more, WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org, the voice of the community.
News headlines, events, podcasts, and more. WEAA.org.
Welcome back to Today with Dr. K. I'm Dr. K. Wise Whitehead. We're talking about what has been happening with the miseducation of our African-American young men that's been happening around the country and more specifically in this city. I was talking to Leo Burst. I'm going to go back to Leo Burst in just 1 second because I have Chanel in the studio with me. Chanel has a barbershop here. He does a lot of work where he leans in to actually be a mentor to young African-American males in this city. Chanel, can you talk to us very quickly about what you think we can do to get our young African-American men motivated to want to do more, to want to finish up their education, to go on to college?
You know, I think one of the things is, you know, when you read a book, one of the things is seeing yourself in that book, which makes the book even more interesting. You know, when I look at the library and what I've done with my children, and I've heard it earlier on a show, and I was listening to it coming in, and someone was talking about the library. You know, the library is one of the few places, actually one of the only places that you can go to where you're not expected to buy anything. You know, keep your money in your pocket. And that whole enrichment, that whole experience, if we can bring our boys to looking at that and saying that that is cool, we can, you know, just do so much with that. And one of the things that I've done is I bring men together. I have these conversation parties when I do once a month, and we try to be better sons, better fathers, better uncles. And we bring young men in. And a lot of times they want that guidance. They're waiting for someone to provide instruction. That's one of the things that I've always saw with the young men on the corner, around my barbershop, and I see them in the neighborhood. They want someone to lean in. They want someone to talk with them. So just being that example and talking to them, bringing them in and doing things like that.
Now, what's interesting, Chanel, I have one more question for you. And Chanel's barbershop is Now Style, which is Now Style Barbershop, which is over on Hartford Road.
Yep,
wonderful place. It's a place where you take your young men in, and which is, I like it. You know, full disclosure, my sons go there, and what I like is they're in the company of the old style barbershops where brothers are talking, laughing, schooling, educating, lifting up. Tell them, pull your pants up, sit down, be quiet. Like, I love that kind of interaction. But what I think is interesting is that, and my father was talking to me, and he's excited about my son getting ready to go to college.
Okay.
And so he called me. He said, you know, I want to talk to you about your son. He's going to college to get educated, but what is his skill? What can he do? And I'm like, well, he can study. He said, no. I don't want to know what he's going to do in the classroom. What can he do? If he doesn't have any money, what is his skill? He said, because what we're doing is we're training our children to think they have to work for someone else. So he told me, he said, what you need to have your oldest son do is go to his uncle and go to that barbershop, and he needs to spend the summer actually learning how to cut hair. He said, 'cause imagine when your son gets to college, he needs money. Instead of having to call home for money, he can cut 3 or 4 heads, and he can make some money and learn a skill. So I just want you to speak very quickly about the importance of teaching skills to our young boys, and not just about sitting in the classroom.
Teaching skill is so important. And what you said lined up exactly with my life. I came down here back in 90, attended Morgan State University, School of Business, and I started cutting hair. I was in the 10th grade, 15 years old. So learning that skill actually from watching my dad, and then taking it a step further and just going to the local barbershop, sitting in and watching the barbers cut hair. And I was able to take this skill, bring it down here to Baltimore from Jersey, and I would cut hair in my apartment. I would cut in the dorm, and I would make money. And I'll tell you, I called home maybe maybe once,
Touch
maybe
and agree.
twice.
Touch and agree, people. You hear that? That's what I want for my son, to call home maybe once or twice for money, because he has a skill set.
Yes.
He has a skill set. Let's be clear. One, that it is above board, because when I went to college, there were a lot of brothers who were selling things illegally and making money under the table. I mean, I'm talking about selling herb and those kind of things. But here's a skill set that can carry you.
And it was the
all way
start
through.
of entrepreneurship.
There you go.
I was able to start a business while I was in school. Printed up the flyers, did my advertising, did my budgeting, all those things. So that parlayed me into doing what I'm doing right now.
There you go. So, folks, I just want to have Chanel step in, because I think sometimes we talk about college or career like it's two edges of one dichotomy, and it really should be college and career, right? You can,
Exactly.
you're still going to get that skill set. Chanel, Now Style on Hartford Road. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
All right, so I was talking to Leo. Leo, welcome back, sir. So you were finishing up about how the fact that you're just about on the edge of being angry. You're not there yet, but about your concern about what's happening at this school. All right, Leo, are you there? All right, so let me see here. What is going on in the room? Let me have Denise from Baltimore City, an educator that teaches in Baltimore. Denise, how are you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Denise. Sorry for the confusion with the lines today.
No worries at all. I just important that we all need to do. If you have a child in Baltimore City school system, a child that you love, you either birthed them or you didn't.
Right.
There's a niece or nephew, whatever. You need to Google, we all Googling, Google your city representative on the city council and your state representative in the House of Delegates and your state senator. Those are three things you're Googling. Your city council, state House of Delegates, state senator. And all I want you to do is look them up, find their name and their address. You can even put it in an email and type in these 2 points. I need a voice on the Maryland Education School Board at the state level and at the city level. I need a voice on my school board. That means no more political appointees. Parents need a voice. No, people forgot on election day that Governor Hogan vetoed that parents should have a voice on the school board.
Yep.
There shouldn't be nothing but parents' voices on that school board. Where else are you going to go and pay all your money, spend your most precious resources, and don't have any kind of voice on what happens to your most precious resource?
Yep.
Where do they do that? No way.
Absolutely.
I need a voice, and I want a constitutional amendment to mandate class sizes in all public schools under 20 people.
I like that. I'm going to stop you there, Denise. I thank you for the. I'm going to go back to Leo. Leo, how are you?
Hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I want to have you wrap up your point. And the other callers, I'm coming to you next. Go ahead.
Right. Again, in wrapping this up, Kwanzaa teaches self-determination and 7 principles. And I think that's what Carl was alluding to, self-determination in educating our children. The Baltimore City Public Schools has prioritized the hiring of white female teachers as opposed to black female teachers. We've got to bring this imbalance back into some kind of balance in which black males are prioritized and considered important. The Baltimore Development Corporation and Greater Baltimore Committee follow the money. They're ruling and they're controlling too many black elected officials. So you can have the skin color all day long, but if you don't have the ideology and the love of your own, with an understanding that we can and will overcome if we plan our direction and prioritize our goals and objectives, we will never overcome. So again, I remember Sonia Santelises sitting at the feet of Andreas Alonso, the former infamous CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools. Unfortunately, she doesn't have the empathy or the caring of our people that she should have. And that's true of too many gatekeepers And we've got to fight and push against it and ensure that blackness means something other than skin color.
I'm going to stop you there. Thank you so much, Leo Burrow. Something my daddy used to say, every black face doesn't have a black agenda, folks. Let's be very clear about that. Leon Bailey has been holding from Northeast Baltimore. Leon, thank you for holding.
Yeah. Good evening. How you doing, Doctor?
I'm doing well, sir.
So the reason I was there last night and I listened to some of the issues that were brought up by the school. Now, I am I'm very displeased with the closing of the school. Something else that came up with me last night when they voted was unanimous. And I'm like, you mean to tell me that there's not one person on that board thought that school should stay open for these young men? Wow. You follow what I'm saying?
I follow what you're saying.
I mean, how could I just didn't? That really touched me, and it's bothering me today that it was unanimous. Yes. And we have these young men here that call is trying to get
save them
early.
Trying to save them.
Yeah, trying to save them earlier. Is I just don't understand it. I've been trying to call for some time, and if he's listening, I've been trying to call him for a couple months, really, to give my support to him because I was willing to come to the school and even donate my books to the school.
Well, here's what I'm going to have you do. Leon, hold on one second. Do not hang up. Justina's going to get your information. We will get it into Carl's hands today. I have Aaron on the phone from Baltimore. Aaron, how are you?
Hey, Dr. K, how's it going? How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. First and foremost, I wanted to start out. We've spoken before.
Yes.
The first time I called in, it was about the use of the N-word and how it's allowed, not allowed. But what I wanted to talk to you about is educating the black men and women in Baltimore. I'm an educator at Johns Hopkins. I'm actually the nuclear medicine program director. And what I wanted to do was to reach out and let people know that if you're interested in science,
right,
you don't have to be a nurse or a medical assistant. There's other things out there. And one of the best kept secrets in medicine is nuclear medicine technology. I came up here in January, took over the program, and the first African-American to actually hold this position. I'm the director of the program.
Congratulations. So how was it? You said nuclear?
I'm a product of HBCUs. I'm a graduate of Clark Atlanta University.
Nice.
And for anyone out there that's listening that's into science, into biology, chemistry, physics, whatever the case may be, and you're not really sure where you want to turn, they can go to the Johns Hopkins Hospital, Schools of Medical Imaging, look up nuclear medicine. You'll see my page. If you've got any questions, I would be happy to.
Yes, don't hang up.
My phone number.
Yes, you know what? So now what should your Dr. Aaron last name?
Scott.
Okay, so if you don't hang up, Justina's going to take your information right now because Dr. Scott, we would like to use you, if you don't mind, as a resource for some of the young African-American males at Banneker Blake Academy. We want to drill down and help these students because they are in a crisis situation right now. The fact that their school is closing is a crisis situation. We'll get Aaron's contact information, Justina. We have now Nicole on the line. Nicole, how are you from Towson? Nicole, are you with us? All right, let's move on to Anaje. Anaje from Baltimore. How are you doing?
Good evening, Dr. K. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And if Mr. Chanel is still there, I'd like to say good evening to him.
Oh, okay, he walked out.
Those young heads that got cut by him in his early years.
And he does an excellent job. My boys love going to Now Style.
Yeah, we were in Jersey City at the time. Dr. K, I wanted to bring up a couple of points. We have one of the premier engineering programs at Morgan State. And I know that Morgan State has a community outreach program where they offer tutoring and mentor services. And I'm wondering if we can expand on that, which is already there, to address some of these issues in the community, in the Baltimore City, young males that are looking to advance their educational pursuits. And the third point I wanted to bring about is I was recently talking to a Baltimore City educator, and he was talking to me about grade inflation and the reason why Baltimore City teachers or teachers in general don't want to give accurate grades to young children that are coming through the ranks. And they're finding themselves even greater behind the 8 ball when they're reaching the middle grades,
right?
Because of that grade inflation.
Right.
More in detail is it's pretty hard on a teacher to fail a young child.
It is. It is. I mean, I'm thinking, Onaje, when I was a teacher, I was reluctant to give a child a failing grade. I was a middle school teacher, and I kept trying to think about, if they're in 7th grade, do I want their failure of social studies to impact them from being able to go to a citywide school and possibly going on to college? I mean, it was very difficult for me, and I wrestled with it because I just kept thinking, this one grade is my way of being very clear about grading them, but it's also the grade that could keep them back from being able to progress. And because we know in Baltimore City, if you don't get those grades in 7th grade and those test scores, you're not going to get into those citywide schools. You won't have a composite score for it.
Well, and is this more in every subject?
No, I was social studies. I mean, I know that for math and for science, areas that were tested, but we as a middle school team, and folks, I'm just peeling back the curtain here, but as a middle school team, we would talk through it, that we took very seriously the charge that we actually stood between a child being able to potentially go to a citywide high school and then on to college. It was like, okay, are we willing to throw all that away? What can we do to get this child to passing? Because they need what they're going to get this year to get that composite score so they can move on with their lives.
Yeah, Dr. K, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you very much. I have Nicole on the phone. No problem, sir. Nicole, how are you? Thank you for calling back.
Hi, Dr. K, how are you?
Fine. Thanks for calling back.
Great. I was so dismayed to hear about the school closing, but what it said to me was that the people at North Avenue just don't see the value in our boys. Because nobody who sees value in our children would even think about closing the school.
I'm with you, Nicole. They don't see the value in our boys. It's interesting because what we're essentially asking the system to do. Go ahead.
I don't think that they have good intentions when they have those meetings because they never give people a chance to speak or testify, and they already have their minds made up.
I think I saw that when I went to the meetings around the air conditioning and the heating situation. Remember the heating situation in the spring? They limited people coming in the room. They limited the people talking. It's like, here is a crisis situation, and you can't open up and have some honest dialogue with us in the middle of a crisis situation.
Yeah, they don't see the value in our children, which means they're the wrong people to be in charge. And something has to change, and it needs to start with North Avenue.
I agree. Thank you so much, Nicole. I have Darren Muhammad on the phone. Darren, so you were at the meeting last night?
Yeah, I was at the meeting last night. It took about 20 to 30 black men that we invited to come and join us and to see what was supposed to be an open and transparent process. But it was clear when you got to the door that it was never going to be open and transparent. It was already a hammer looking for a nail. The decision and the die was already set. And to see how despicable the school board members were. And that's what I think we should give the public, all the names of those school board members and their phone numbers, and as well as Santelizi, because they spend more time, I think, attacking Councilman for Life Carl Stokes than they did talking about all of the great work that the young men have been doing. They wouldn't even allow the students and their parents to testify. They wouldn't even allow former Council President Lawrence Bell and his mother to testify.
Wow.
They came out to support the school, but yet they were going to allow Councilman Pinkett, who wasn't even representing Banneker Blake, to come up and speak, but they told former Council President Lawrence Bell he couldn't speak. It was just disrespect to the black community and to, again, caring citizens all the way around.
Right.
Just the whole process. When you don't want to have the meeting where you could have large numbers because you want to control, of course, any opposition. So they disperse your numbers by having you in 2 overflow rooms. I've been going to school board meetings for years, so I know what they'll do. And so it clearly lets you see that from the beginning that there was already meetings before the meeting, and they wanted to basically close down Councilman Stokes' school. No more than for the fact was because of his relationship with the governor and with the lieutenant governor. I mean, all of this has come out public information. And so I think the onus is still to call for Santelice to resign, because with all the conditions that's existing in the schools, then her job is supposed to help to enhance our young black men. Now, had this been a school where they were teaching those 200 young black men to be effeminized men or use what they call conversion therapy, so they no longer want to be black boys but want to be black girls, they would say that this is a model school for the entire nation. But because it's for, again, young black men to develop into their maximum development, clearly there are those on that school board who don't look like us and don't have the best interests of our children, nor, again, Councilman for Life Carl Stokes, Edwin Johnson, the principals and others that have done a fine job in letting those young men grow to their maximum potential, and then multiply these types of programs around this city and around this state.
All right, I'm going to stop you there, Darren. I appreciate you. All right, folks, I just pulled up, based upon what Darren Muhammad said, the members of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. They are appointed jointly by the governor of Maryland and the mayor of Baltimore City. You can simply Google it. You can see Chair Cheryl Cassiani, Vice Chair Linda Chania, Muriel Berkeley, Michelle Has-Bondema, Andrew Andy Flank, Martha James Hassan, Ronald S. McFadden, Jonetta Richardson, Vernon Reed, and Student Commissioner Joshua Lynn. Those are the members. Contact them. Why are we continuing to allow our school board to be appointed by people like the governor and the mayor rather than to be lifted up from the people and voted on by us? Then you wonder why your schools close. The schools are closing because the people that are sitting in those chairs are not responsible for our children's best interest, because they don't have to be responsive to our needs. That is a concern. I have Marsha Jews on the line. Marsha Jews, of course, at WEAA. Jewel, how are you?
Oh, I am sick. I'm just sick. And I'm sick and tired of Black children not being educated. I'm sick that Carl only had 4 minutes to speak. I'm sick that the other people who have been involved with the Bell family have been involved with that school for forever, and they were not able to speak and to give their positioning. That school hasn't been there long enough to even get its roots. They've been struggling, trying to get support to make certain that everything is in place. I think that we have to, as a community, we have to decide what's more important. How many more juvenile jails we want to build, how many more children we want to incarcerate, or how many of our Black children we're going to educate.
You're absolutely right. Let me ask you this, Marsha, and I appreciate you calling. Tell people what they need to do right now, because I think people are get their hands tied.
Needs to find all of those names and telephone numbers and emails and call the superintendent of schools office and call every board member every 5 minutes and every council person that's anywhere near their phone. Call and complain, write letters, post it on social media. This needs to be overturned. And I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of it. And we see the result of it time and again. All these children, they have nothing to do. They come out of prison. They come out of juvenile system. They can't get a job. They can't stay on the job. They have no hope. And so when you have no hope, that's how you get to crime. And that is what it is, because they still have to survive. But we're not giving them the tools. We're not giving them the leadership, the professional, the career, the personal development to become the best that they can be.
Absolutely. Marsha Jews, I'm going to say the names again because people can find them and do exactly what you said. Jam the phone lines, email them, write them, call them. Folks, go right online. You look on the BaltimoreCitySchools.org. Get the names of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. They are appointed jointly by the governor of Maryland and the mayor of Baltimore City. The chair is Cheryl Cassiani. She was a teacher for 37 years. She's right here in Baltimore City. You can find her. Vice Chair Linda Chania, Muriel Berkeley, Michelle Has-Bondema, Andrew Andy Frank, Martha James Hassan, Ronald McFadden, Vernon Reed, Jonetta Richardson, Student Commissioner Joshua Lynn. Why don't you go online, look up these Baltimore City School Board members? If you don't like what happened, they voted 7-0 because 2 commissioners left, 7-0 to close this school. The school's only been around for 4 years, folks. And if the school was actually able to be progressive in 2 of the areas, And the other two were the big holdups. Why not put some money behind the school, get it up to code, fix the problem, rather than having a school that's focused on educating African-American young males, having that school closed? Folks, that is a real problem. We have Mr. L on the phone. Mr. L, how are you?
Great, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling.
I think one of the things that needs to be addressed and can't be overlooked when you look at operating a charter school here in Baltimore City, and this is just not under Dr. Santeliers, but previous administrations as well, they have created an environment where they are trying to starve these schools out as a way of right-sizing the budget for public education in this city. And one of the big burdens that charter schools carry is the cost of maintaining their facilities. So if you're a traditional school and you have an issue with your building, you can leverage city resources to come help and fix that problem. If you're a charter school and you have an issue with your facility, it is your general fund or your endowment, if you have anything, that must be applied to keep you running. Simple things like that put an extra burden on these schools, which can make it look like that there's fiscal mismanagement and the like, and an excuse to shut these schools down. The current administration on North Avenue, I question where they are really on school choice. Because in their conversation of school choice, it never really mentions charter schools.
All right. I'm going to stop you there, Mr. L. I'm sorry. So we only have a little bit of time. I want to give quick comments. We have Eve on the phone, Baltimore City teacher. Eve, how are you?
Hi, Dr. K. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I turned off my radio.
Thank you.
First time caller. Love your show. Always listen
Welcome
to
to
it.
the family.
I teach in Baltimore City Public Schools. I've been a teacher for 9 years. And I've always been at a charter school. And we go through these reviews every 3 years. And not only is it unfair and unjust because they're sending in people that aren't qualified, that have never even taught in a classroom to evaluate what goes on in these classrooms. So we go through it, and then you go up for an approval. In our school that I'm currently at, we consistently get only 3-year approvals, which then puts teachers through the same process of trying to get prepared for these reviews for these adults coming in from North Avenue that don't do anything to impact student achievement. They just come to judge what's happening in the classroom.
Now, I'm going to stop you, Eve. Eve, can you not hang up? Justina, get Eve's number because we want to have a follow-up conversation. It is American Education Week, Eve. We want to revisit this conversation tomorrow. We'll make sure we get your information. Valerie in real time. I'm sorry I couldn't get to you. Folks, we got to leave it right here. I gave you the name of the members of the Baltimore City School Board twice. I also put the link on the website. Hey, why don't you take a moment today? Why don't you get the email and why don't you email them? Why don't you give them a call to their office? Why don't we demand in this city to have a school board that we vote on? Let's stop forgetting at election time that we have some power here. Today we got the Kansas production of WEAA. Want to remind you that on Saturday, come out and join Robert Shaheed for the Oldies but Goodies Memory Lane Meet and Greet right here at WEAA between 8 and 10 a.m. on Saturday. Breakfast is on Robert. I might come out for that as well. Stay tuned. Up next is For the Culture with Faraji. Remember, folks, here on Today with Dr. K, if it has your ear, it definitely has my attention. Make an appointment. Meet me back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Let's talk again and keep it here for a final update from MTA.
And a good evening. We have a couple of trains running a little bit late. They're both on the Penn line, train 641 and train 430, both about 5 to 10 minutes late. No other delays anywhere on the MARC system. Light Rail Link is on time, as is the Metro Subway Link. Local Link bus diversions because of construction include the Orange Line diverted at Franklin and Cary. The Lime Line is diverted westbound at Eastern and Eden, and the Lime Line southbound diverted at Caroline and Gulf. The 79 bus diverted westbound at Wakefield and Fairview. 79 eastbound is diverted at Forest Park and Dickey Hill. For the MTA Transit Team, I'm Ken Berger on 88.9 FM WEAA, the voice of the community.
Wake up! That's right. Wake up and tune in every Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. to Reggae Roots and Culture. Always positive, always uplifting. Roots Reggae Music, hosted by yours truly, Papa Wabe. That's Reggae Roots and Culture at our new time, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, here on WEAA 88.9 FM. Absolutely the voice of the community. Greetings. This is Papa Wabe, host of Reggae Roots and Culture.
If you're looking for the very best in conversation, great music, and, of course, the very best slow jams in the city, make sure you join me, LaDon Black, nightly, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Friday, right here on your community station, the station that's your source for cool jazz and so much more, WEAA 88.9 FM.
Celebrating 40 years of broadcasting, Morgan State University Public Radio, 88.9 WEAA FM and HD1, Baltimore.
I do this for my culture, 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 I do this for my culture, culture, culture. I do this for my culture, culture, culture.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Spear. In Northern California, where at least 48 people have died in what is now the state's deadliest fire ever, the task of searching for more victims continues. NPR's Kirk Siegler is in the largely destroyed town of Paradise, California.
I'm standing on a street across from a Best Western hotel that was spared, although you can see pretty much rubble all around it. And I'm at a staging area for search and rescue teams. I'm looking at a group of men and women now getting into Tyvek suits, a bunch of people jumping into pickups to head out from here and scour the neighborhoods and what's left of them. It's not really a search and rescue effort. I think it's safe to say at this point they're just still looking for unaccounted people and human remains. It's a pretty difficult situation with so much smoke. It's hard to see, and it's for sure tough and grim out here as well.
President Trump today praised firefighters who've been battling the flames both in northern and Southern California. At least 2 people died in fires near Los Angeles. A report released today puts the costs for the U.S. of wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan at nearly $5 trillion, with an additional $2 trillion in future spending. As NPR's David Wellman explains, the study also says nearly 500,000 people have died in that fighting, half of them civilians.
In its latest annual costs of the high level of spending on wars since the 9/11 attacks may be disproportionate to the threats the U.S. faces. The report's author, Nita Crawford, says official information about these wars that was once available increasingly is being kept secret.
I don't think that's necessarily a deliberate effort at obfuscation, but what happens is we don't keep track of how much of these wars and their associated expenses will, in the long run, cost us.
Crawford says there's neither a strategy for ending these wars nor a plan to pay for them. David Wellman, NPR News, Washington.
House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy has been reelected to head the Republican caucus next year, though the Trump ally will face a starkly different landscape, with Democrats taking control of the chamber for at least the next 2 years. McCarthy, who was endorsed by outgoing Speaker Paul Ryan, says he wants to unite the body, though he's prepared for Democrats to have a different idea.
If their agenda is simply investigations, impeachment, and not focused on the hardworking American public, we'll be there to defend the American public.
McCarthy fended off a challenge from conservative Jim Jordan of Ohio to win the minority leader post. Nationwide is cutting jobs. The insurance and financial services firm announcing today will eliminate about 1,100 positions around the country. The company says it will cut 80 jobs in Des Moines and 350 jobs in Columbus. Job cuts are coming in the company's technology, marketing, property, and casualty operations. The Dow was down 205 points today. This is NPR. British Prime Minister Theresa May says
Parkway and Skaggsville Road, and a crash. The traffic is getting by to the right if you're traveling southbound again between 216 and Patuxent River Bridge. Inner Loop of 695 is heavy between Washington Boulevard and Liberty Road, and again between Park Heights Avenue and Hartford Road. Outer Loop expect delays between 95 and Perrin Parkway, and again between Evanston Avenue and Frederick Road. Eastbound 70, stop and go between the Patapsco River Bridge to 695. And westbound, you'll be jammed between 355 and 15. On the Harrisburg Expressway, expect delays northbound between Shawan Road and Belfast Road. And southbound, you'll be inching between Padonia Road and 695. On the Jones Falls Expressway, northbound, experience jam-ups northbound between Fayette Street and Druid Park Lake. And if you're traveling northbound 895, stop and go between Route 2 Spur and the Harbor Tunnel. This update is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Margot Burr with your Baltimore area traffic.
88.9 FM reminds you that the views expressed on WEAA programs are those of participants and not necessarily those of Morgan State University, the staff, management, or underwriters of Baltimore's home for cool jazz. WEAA 88.9 FM.
I do this for my culture, 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 culture. I do this for my culture, culture, culture. I do this for my culture, culture, culture. Peace and welcome to For the Culture right here on your source for cool jazz and more. WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. Absolutely the voice of the community. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and riding with me. I'm your host tonight here as we talk about and have another great conversation talking about the issues. That's right. We're going to get into it tonight, folks, because apparently there has been a real problem within our educational system. And I want to get into it tonight. I do want to have a conversation about it because I'm hearing a lot of people feeling and expressing their disappointment with the school board's decision to close Banneker Blake. And it's a hard thing to kind of look at here, folks, because again, we had former councilman Mr. Carl Stokes on the show Monday night talking about the metrics that Banneker Blake had to meet in order to stay open, according to what was shared with him. And now we're at this place where the board has voted to close the schools now. And many of you have expressed your disappointment. And, the ironic thing about this, isn't it National Education Week? That's the ironic thing. It's like all of a decision like that is made. Now, that's a very, very tough decision. Very, very tough. And we heard Mr. Stokes explain some of the things that he had to do, or what the school had to do in order to get to a much better place. And so, to close any school, there is a real, we can't take that with a grain of salt. We can't just assume that we know all of the ins and out of it. So to close any school, there has to be some real critical thinking before we just kind of jump into an emotional tirade. And I certainly would like to, hopefully we can hear from someone from the school board, but more importantly, how do we as the community respond to that? Now, as I'm understanding, Banneker Blake wasn't the only school that was slated to be closed. There are also some other schools that were on the docket, and the board had voted to close those schools and kind of move those schools around. Banneker Blake just happened to be that all-boy charter school, and they were up for renewal. But then after looking at all of the factors and the metrics and everything, it was moved to close. It's a hard thing. I can only imagine, because you have so many people that have put their time, their talents, their skills. So many families have invested in any one particular school, especially a school like a Banneker Blake, any charter school. You know, as far as I know about charter schools, that it is very much a community-oriented process. So for us to, you know, it's just a hard pill to swallow. But the school board is also saying that there are some other schools that were closed. Gilmore Elementary is also scheduled to close and merge with nearby William Pender Hughes Elementary Middle School. Pender Hughes was on the chopping block last year, but then the community rallied to save that school, which was considered to be a vital anchor, according to the reports, in the Sandtown, Winchester area. The district has also recommended the board to close Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary Middle School in Northwest Baltimore because it's struggling with low enrollment and is housed in an aging building. According to the district, that particular school has the highest repair costs over the past 2 years. And because it's built into a hill, there has been problems with water damage and flooding, which are difficult to fix. The district has also proposed rezoning the elementary school students to Edgecombe Circle Elementary, while the middle school students will go to Pimlico Elementary Middle. And when you do rezoning, you have to think about the impact that would have on, again, the students and the families, because, you know, in Baltimore, we are a city of neighborhoods, and we may not have like real heavy gangs, but we definitely are very, very prideful about the neighborhoods that we come from and who are you? You know what I mean? Who is you type of mentality. You walk through a neighborhood, you got to get some authorization. I mean, and this is what we impose on ourselves, right? We impose that on ourselves to create that type of culture where even our own can't even walk through the neighborhood. So those were just some of the other decisions. And I mentioned, like I said, Gilmore merging with William Pender Hughes. And so there has to be a community element of this conversation that has to be implemented, because I would think that the school district it has decided to close these schools because, one, either it's very costly, two, there might be some enrollment issues, three, the infrastructure is messed up, and there is some real problems, folks. And so I wanted us to continue this conversation, but I really don't want to continue out of an emotional space. It's emotionally bearing. It does breaks your heart, trust me. But it's not an emotional situation in the sense of, well, what about the children? It's just a lot. And in terms of the charter schools are not really faring out any well. the district also talked about poor academic performance or financial mismanagement and recommending that 3 other charter schools, Monarch Academy, Northwood Appold Community Academy, and Roots and Branches schools close. Here's the thing, though. If we're going to bring people into leadership of any of these schools, you got to have qualified individuals, right? And Mr. Stokes said that himself, that, the second year there was some leadership issues. And so they had to make some decisions, and they did a big turnaround come the third year. They saw things on the upswing. But the reality is charter schools just don't have the liberty to mess up. You got to bring qualified individuals in from the very beginning, people that are very serious, committed to ensuring that a school maintains itself, is highly sustainable, can hit all of the metrics of enrollment, of operating at a decent cost, of making sure that students are getting the best educational experience. All of those things are important. It starts with people, though. It starts with people. And as much as we don't want to admit to it, the reality is that we do have to, in some cases, look at a school like we do a corporation. You have to operate it until it gets its own footing, that you have to operate it, I think, in some cases like a corporation, that you do have your students are your stakeholders. Your parents are your stakeholders. The community members, that's your stakeholders. The stock, the quote unquote credibility of the school, the performance measures. These are the things that I need to look at, because education is certainly changing. The landscape of education is changing. I'm going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to talk about this. We got people that are already checking in right now that want to share their thoughts about this, because this is a much larger picture. Banneker Blake is one school that was voted upon, but we're starting to see these. And this is not, let me just put this out there. This is not unusual, nor is this the first time. That's why we got so many smaller schools in these larger school buildings, because I grew up in a city of Northern, Western, Poly, School for the Arts, City, Dunbar, Mervo, Carver, Southwestern. I grew up in that Baltimore. That's the old Baltimore. This is a new Baltimore. Now we got these professional schools. We got trade schools. We got schools that are much more specialized in their training and education. So is it us, or is it the district that got to keep up with the times educationally? We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, I want to hear your thoughts. 410-319-8888. Also, check us out on my Facebook page at Forticulture 889. We're streaming on WEAA.org right now, as well as on my personal Facebook page at Faraji Muhammad. Going to get to your thoughts as we talk about school closures and as we talk about district decisions. Stay riding with us. It's Forticulture here on your source for cool jazz and more. WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. We'll be right back. Peace and welcome back to Forticulture here on your source for cool jazz and more. WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in, riding with me. All right, let's get into it. Let me hear from what you got to say as we talk about school closures and district decisions, and talking about the state of our education here in the city of Baltimore. Let's jump right into it, folks. I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm gonna kick it off with a special education advocate from Northwest Baltimore, Mr. Williams. Got you on hand right now. What's your take on this, Mr. Williams?
Good evening, Faraji. I'm a special education advocate for the last 20 years.
Fantastic.
and I've fought to get kids services that they need.
Yeah.
And one of the things, a lot of people did not watch the school board meeting afterwards when they did a presentation of why they were closing Banneker School. I don't think it should close personally. I think the school system should give that school extra supports to help them give those special ed children the things they need. But in light of the fact that they want to put the charter schools out alone to sink or swim, that's why we have this problem. Now, when children have IEPs and they don't get the services that they're supposed to receive because of lack of whatever reason, a charter school doesn't give the services like what occurred, there's something called compensatory services. And that means that that school has to pay additional funds to provide services for the child. Okay. Now, the school system may have had to pay that, or it may have been taken out of out of Banneker's budget. Okay. Now, when you have a lot of students having compensatory services, that's what was conveyed at the board meeting after everybody left, that nobody saw.
Compensatory services.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, compensatory services are in addition to the services that a school receives per pupil amount of money. Okay.
Gotcha.
It's like, because I didn't teach this child the special education goals and objectives that they had in the IEP, then we have to give them additional services. It costs money. So one of the reasons the school system did it, chose to shut down the school, was because there was additional money having to be paid for those children who had IEPs at that school. Okay. So
it's a financial, it sounds like to me, Mr. Williams, it's a financial decision.
Oh, yes, it's completely financial. Okay. Because that's one of the reasons that they conveyed to Councilman Stokes that you have to have adequate amount of money in the bank, because when these things occur, that money has to be drawn out and paid for people who are going to provide those compensatory services.
Got you.
Okay. So I think the school system, this Baltimore School Board failed the school and the children, because they should have given them more guidance when it comes to special education, because the Baltimore City school system got sued because they didn't provide services to schools that were regular schools, not even charter schools. Okay. And I have fought to get children placements in schools in other jurisdictions because Baltimore City couldn't provide the services, and they had to pay compensatory services as well. So the money and the fact that Baltimore City has gotten their fingers burned so many times for not providing services, one of the underlying factors that was brought to light after everybody left, Brother Faraji. Okay. Wow. Now, but the school system, and we fought to get elected school board years ago. Okay. We went to Annapolis and everything. But the people in Annapolis are afraid that if you can get votes to become a school board member, that you can take their jobs. Well, if they were doing their jobs in Annapolis correctly, they wouldn't have to worry about anybody taking their jobs. So this is political as well as financial.
Well, isn't it always, Mr. Williams?
Yes, it is.
Isn't it always? And I'm going to check into what you're saying, that compensatory services. I think that's another element that that's the first time I've actually heard that.
That was conveyed at the board meeting last night when before the school board voted.
Yeah.
All of this was brought up. Okay.
Yep.
Instead of the school board saying, okay, we're going to give you another year and we're going to send people to help you, they want to shut the school down for whatever reasons, as Brother John Muhammad said last hour. I mean, there's a lot of underlying reasons people do things, but compensatory services was brought up and it cost money.
There it is. Dollars and cents.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, Mr. Williams, thank you. And thank you so much for being an advocate for children that need special education. Let's go back to the phone line, see what folks got to say. We just kind of checking in, talking about school closures and district decisions, folks. Let's go to Charlie, Baltimore County. Charlie, what's your take on this?
Yeah, good evening, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
So every night on my way home driving, so I'll be driving with you.
Hey, thank you so much, Charlie. We appreciate that. So, Charlie, what's your take on this right now? I mean, we have one school that really has touched the hearts of a lot of people, Banneker Blake, but then there have been other schools that are on the chopping block as well.
Well, I've been living in the Baltimore area for like close to 25 years. I'm transplanted.
Okay.
That's the school system.
Okay.
So the thing of it is that, you know, a lot of these issues that occurred while that school closed, it's just my opinion because I'm not as learned as your recent caller. But it seemed like a lot of reasons these schools are closing is because they know that certain things are necessary in order to be successful. And I think that it's a misuse of funds. It might be even a lack of understanding of how to keep a school above water. I think it's a disservice to the community because the community depends on these schools for their children. I mean, I heard the show last night saying about how a little boy was crying because the school was closing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, these are the things that Baltimore, in my 2 decades living here, has a problem with. It's the nepotism. It's not following through with things. It's thinking like, okay, we can just put we can get away with this, that, and the third. You know, not enough care and discipline is put into keeping these things running because the community depends on it.
Right.
So if the community is depending on this, then it's your responsibility as running the school to make sure that the school is top. You know, because the taxpayers paying this money. But I think it was kind of like a lack of, I don't know, Faraj. I think it was just kind of like a lack of really seeing things through. Well, we don't have to really worry about that right now or putting things off. You know, I've been in Baltimore administration, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on in Baltimore administration. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I think it's just such a sad thing. It's such a sad disservice to these young boys.
Well, let me ask you, and Charlie, real quick, how many folks do you think showed up, or were you able to join the meeting last night?
Yes, no, I wasn't able to join the meeting last night.
Okay.
I wasn't.
And the reason I'm bringing this up, the only reason I'm bringing it up, Charlie, is that I think we also as a city, as a community, we tend to jump in on the final end of a situation instead of preventing. We're kind of more reacting. We get into a mode where, you know, we have to kind of get into crisis mode. And for me, for something like this, I don't want us to be in crisis mode. This is too heavy of a situation, too necessary, too vital for the sustainability of this city for us to react and be in crisis mode versus being in a place where we can make sure that this is not going to happen in 6 months down the road, 9 months down the road. I'm
sorry.
So no, that's all I'm saying. I don't want us to be in crisis mode all the time.
Well, it seems like this is always an issue going on in crisis mode. If the school was, better prepared, then it would be in a crisis mode. That's all I'm saying. That's something that we have to consider. We have to really consider that. Charlie from Baltimore County, thank you so much for checking in. We got to take a quick pause. When we come back, Paul Ock, Paul W, Apache, and Real Thomas, I'm gonna get to you. I hope y'all folks don't get mad at me for saying that. Hope you don't get mad at me for saying, let's not be reactionary or in crisis mode all the time. Because I'm not saying that to diminish any particular effort. What I am saying is that we need to prepare and plan, and most importantly, be at the table when the conversation starts, not when everybody is packing up their things to leave out the door. And we coming into the meeting like, all right, let's have the meeting. No, we can't keep doing that. And I think, and I've seen how these school board decisions and how this process goes. And unfortunately, we got to be there at the table. This is a consistent effort, folks. This is like organizing, strategy building, movement building 101. You got to be there consistently. That's what I'm saying. You got to be there consistently on all the time. And at those meetings where most people don't think there's a meeting, you got to be the one there at the meeting consistently. So if we have a group of individuals that are going to represent the larger interests of the city,
not just one community, but for many communities. We could be 1 or 2 representatives, but they're going to be able to commit themselves to being at the table, to being a part of the process. So that way, come June or even come this time next year, we're not having the same conversation. Then that will put us in a much better space. We're able to galvanize people. We're able to gain the resources that we need. We're able to make the relationships. I mean, we're able to do a lot more. We're able to do a lot more. Because institutionally, they're going to respond one way, but the community has to respond another way. But your community has to be very much prepared for the response coming from these institutions. I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your thoughts. Hit me up on my Facebook page, Faraji Muhammad. Make sure you keep streaming us on WEAA.org. We got a whole lot to get to. Plus, in the second hour, we're going to be talking to Baltimore native, Morgan State alumni, Mr. Jason Weems and his wife, Dion Weems, as we talk about his upcoming comedy special. So much to get to this evening. Stay riding with me. It's For the Culture here on WEAA.
WEAA on Assignment, a look at the arts, culture, and enterprise in and around our city. Recorded and produced by students of the School of Global Journalism and Communication at Morgan State University. Support for WEAA on Assignment comes from PNC.
Members of Morgan State University's marching machine are excited to be honored with the opportunity to march in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, Thanksgiving Day 2019. Marching band director Melvin Miles announced the news during homecoming, and it has since shined a light on the band.
I'm excited on how the university is responding to it. The university is embracing it. They're very excited about it. Everybody's responding to it very favorably. You know, everywhere we go, or when students go, they're giving that nod of approval that it's a big deal, it's a big thing. And so we're kind of excited about it, kind of stoked.
Arthur Crowner, a freshman to Morgan State University and a trumpeter of the Bear Band, has dreamed about this day since he was a kid.
I got so excited because I honestly used to talk about that with my parents. One day I'm going to be up there, but this is soon. It's like really close now.
Although she won't be participating, senior and trumpeter Kayla Johnson isn't bitter. Instead, she's just as happy and proud for her bandmates.
Oh man, it was amazing. It was crazy. Like, to know that people start to recognize all the hard work and dedication that we've been putting into this band program for the last 5 years. I've definitely seen the band grow since I've been here. I was really excited, and actually I was sad that I couldn't march next year because I'll be gone.
With an entire year ahead and the anticipation of millions of eyes on them, Miles and his marching machine have begun practices with a 2019 goal in mind.
We will be reminding people, these are the things we got to achieve for that. We've got a date where we're going to be revealed to a whole bunch of people that don't get to see us. And so we need to make sure that we start out the semester, start out the year, working real hard to be really sharp in every kind of way.
I'm Misha McDonald with WEAA on Assignment.
This has been an installment of WEAA on Assignment with support from PNC.
Not sure if you are a current WEAA member? Call us at 443-885-2075.
I do this for my culture, 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 culture. I do this for my culture, culture, culture. I do this for my culture, culture, culture.
Welcome back to For the Culture, right here on your source for cool jazz and more. WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. Absolutely the voice of the community. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and riding with me this evening, folks. We are continuing the conversation about school closures and district decisions. That's right, as there have been a number of folks that have not been happy with the latest rounds of closures and rezoning decisions made by the school board at the school board meeting last night, and it's gotten people really upset. The bigger question is, has it gotten us more prepared? Because this is not the first time, and I don't believe this will be the last time that the school board will make some very, very hard decisions to close certain schools. The big school that has gained a lot of people's attention is the closing of the all-boys charter middle school, Banneker Blake Middle. The school board unanimously voted to revoke the school's charter because of, quote, persistent problems with special education compliance, financial mismanagement, and operations. And those are three big issues. Now, we had Mr. Carl Stokes on this show the other night, and he talked about some of the metrics and some of the key things that the school had to do. And they met their goal based upon what was told to them. But then the school board still decided that what their efforts weren't enough to influence the board's decision. I want to go back to the lines to hear folks' thoughts about this, because, it's more like, okay, at this point, how do we prepare? How do we get our schools in a much better place versus feeling like there has been another thing taken away from us? There's been another loss. All right, let's go to the line. Let's go to Ak out of Mount Vernon. Ak, what's your take on this? Hey, Ak.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Ak?
I'm oppressed, brother. Blessed. Listen, man, we continue to talk. When do we eat? Chicken's ready. Let's boycott Christmas, see what happens. Have a good one, brother.
All right, Ak, I hear that. Yes, sir. Let's go to Rio Thomas in Baltimore City.
Oh, Faraji, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Thomas. How are you, brother?
Well, Faraji, anybody surprised that Dr. Santeliso and the board did this? Let's do the research on this real quickly. Wasn't she Dr. Alonzo's number 2 when he was still cutting the schools too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So now she's got the top job. Anybody think that she wouldn't go follow Alonzo's path that she started on along with him?
But here's the question, though, Thomas. And because I don't think it's like a personal vendetta for her to. I mean, she wouldn't have nothing to gain to continue the program or the vision of Dr. Alonzo. She wouldn't have nothing to gain. Well, especially because this is not her first year as being superintendent.
She won't have anything to gain, but the developers who support them will have something to gain. Because I heard Brother Stokes said, as a matter of fact, I think it was on your show, when he also was saying that they told him that they wanted his building.
Yeah.
Now, when I ask the question, who wanted his building and why did they want his building? He's having to pay $387,000 a year for his building when some of those other charter schools only pay $1.
Yeah, well, let's see. And again, that right there certainly brought up a red flag for me as well, Thomas. Okay. $367,000 a year to use one building, and then a $1 for another. Some charter schools may pay $1. I think there should be equity across the board, right? Like if one charter school pays $1, then everybody should pay $1. I'm saying all of the charter schools, right? But something that raised a flag for me.
Northwestern, when they sold Northwestern High School, to the Jewish community, how much did they pay for that school, Faraji?
Now that I got to look up, Thomas. Be honest with you, I don't know.
$1.
$1. That was under then, I believe, Mayor Sheila Dixon, who sold them that with the help of with the help of the Jewish, I would call them lobbyists, Elijah Cummings. They got Northwestern for $1. I'm gonna take a look into that. I'm gonna look into what was the context of that and what was happening at that time, because there were a lot of spaces up for $1. You know, that was all the rage in the city at one point.
That's exactly right. So why is it that Brother Stokes and his school having to pay $387 or $67,000 a year?
Yeah.
That means they would have to have some type of money coming in to maintain that.
Absolutely. So are you saying and I mean, I'm gonna let you go in a few moments, but I want to get your final thought on this, Thomas. Are you saying that the school's current decision and is more than what they are sharing with the public?
Exactly what it is. We need to find out when they came to Brother Stokes, if he can call in and share with us, why did they say they wanted his building? They said they wanted his building. We need to find out who wanted his building.
Okay, that's a good. I think that's a valid question.
I guarantee you, it's going to be some rich developer.
Hey, and let me, hey, Thomas, I appreciate you for checking in, folks. If we want to have a conversation about developers in this city, trust me. Guess what? Yeah, that's real. That is absolutely real. I know the D word is about to become a curse word in this town. When you talk about a developer, there's no positive connotation around it. But at the same time, folks, guess what? Baltimore City has been broken down and looked broken down for many, many years. So I'm not necessarily hating the D word right now. I'm questioning it. I'm wondering, what are the details of the work? But I'm not going to just throw a blanket hatred of developers, because I want my own city to look better. I want buildings to operate better. I want the abandoned stuff to go down. I don't want children looking at some of the eyesore spots in this city. I just don't. I don't know about you. I'm just tired of it. So if we're going to throw the developer out there as if the developer is like kryptonite to this great city of Baltimore, hey man, I don't think that's the case. Let's go to Paul, West Baltimore. Talk to me.
Take my call, Buck Raji. Dr. K gave out information, BaltimoreSchool.org. Folks, we need to call, blow up these phones, let these people know how we feel about the situation now. Here's the whole lie to everything, Brother Faraji, the whole lie to everything. You got millions of dollars to build a brand new juvenile facility, millions of dollars to build that. You got millions of dollars to pay overtime for police who ain't doing their job. We got plenty of money in this city. And you mean to tell me we can't keep charter schools open that's working for black young boys? Now, so keep in mind, we talking about young male black boys. That school should be open. They should be duplicating that school. That school, I heard a young kid on Dr. K's show, and the young boy told us how important it was for him to be at that school and what was happening with him by being at that school. That alone enough should open up all our eyes to say that finally there's something that's working for our youth. There's no excuse for Baltimore City, but for Raji, the same curriculums or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Just look at the young juvenile institutions. They have teachers in there. They making sure that that place is running. Come on now, you got to be kidding me. Shame on that board. Shame on the mayor, the governor, because they all know exactly what's going on. It's the same old, forget about black people. They don't matter to us. And the sad part is, I'm going to look up to see exactly who's on that board. And I'm willing to believe the majority of them probably
It's public information. You can certainly look it up, Paul.
Black people. Shame on you, sellout Negroes is what I'm going to call. But I guarantee you this. I'm going to blow the foam up. I'm going to do everything I can, and I'm going to let them know how I feel about the situation, why their kids are living out in the county and doing good. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, no, I get you. Here's the thing. And Paul, and I feel the sentiment. I understand the passion. The thing is, when we look at other schools or other school districts around the state, they're not operating the same way. And Paul, I gotta let you go, but thank you so much as always for checking in from West Baltimore. They're not operating around in the same manner, that we're operating in. They're just not. I mean, yeah, they make some of the hard decisions, but what is it for us? And see, as much as we like to put the blame on the decision makers, because rightfully so, they're the decision makers. We do have the power. We don't have the power to stop them in the sense of if they already have a plan in motion and things, we can do our best. And I want us to keep that in mind. But we have greater power over how we can respond to a situation. We have much greater power in that area. Much greater power. Let's go to Brother Darren, West Baltimore. Brother Darren, talk to me. What's your take, sir?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. Well, I think the first thing we need is to have a moratorium on school closures and then a moratorium on the expansion of charter schools. Because clearly, when you look at charter schools being expanded in Baltimore City and in the state of Maryland, there's probably about 50 to 60 charter schools in the state of Maryland and 59 of them in Baltimore City. So that's why you don't see this problem around the state, because other counties, they're saying, no, we see the roots of what y'all doing. They're using our children for cash cows. The more labels, the more money's put on the table. The more you label our children in terms of IEP, special ed, right? Then they get federal money in terms of the Title I money, right?
Right.
You understand that?
Right.
And so this is what happens. And then we got to have an elected school board, because when you look at those school board members, all of them represent a foundation or a corporation. Let's just take Andy Frank. He worked for Johns Hopkins. He used to work in Baltimore City when Sheila Dixon was the mayor. He worked in housing. He was a chief of staff. Now he's chief of staff to the president of Johns Hopkins. So when Johns Hopkins wants to expand their reach and grab in Baltimore City because they're not making any more land, then who you think is going to be on that school board to look out for Johns Hopkins to get some more buildings for $1 in Baltimore City? Right. Andy Frank. I mean, Stevie Wonder could see the game that's being played on our people. And then they give the charter schools just enough. So every 3 years they come back and close the charter school, because now they've already gone around the country and invited people into Baltimore City, and they cherry pick what buildings they want. I remember when Winston Elementary School, when we were fighting them when they were trying to close Winston and at that time Chicopin. And this was a part of the facility solution. And what we found out was that foundations such as the Abel Foundation, the Thalheimer Foundation, it was about 11 foundations. They gave money to Baltimore City, the mayor's office under Martin O'Malley, then to the school board. These are foundations that gave money for them to break up our public schools in Baltimore City, which is criminal. I mean, they were admitting that this is what they were doing. And then they came back and offered us, this is what they said, by having smaller schools, the buildings were going to be safer. By having smaller schools, right, it was going to be better. Then they came in and said, well, now because you don't have this number of students in this big building, now we got to close your schools. They keep changing the metrics. You say they give you metrics, but they'll keep changing the metrics, like that old cartoon with Lucy and Charlie Brown. This is what happens. So the schools can never meet the goals because they keep changing the goals, brother.
All right, Brother Darren. Thank you so much for checking in. Let's continue the conversation. Let's go to Apache out of Laurel. Apache, what's your take?
Hey, salam alaikum, brother. How you doing?
Walaikum salam. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
Yep.
I was there last night at the meeting.
Okay.
So I want to hit on a lot of the topics that you talked about. But before we get to that real quick, I just want to push back a little bit on something that you had said earlier, out of love.
Sure.
Where you saying don't, come kind of Johnny come lately, I guess is what you were basically saying. Dr. K yesterday, the reason why I went to the board meeting is because Dr. K had mentioned it at the end of her show. I didn't catch the whole show, right? I just knew that she was talking about education.
Right.
And she said, that's why, one of her last statements, that's why we got to, go to the meeting tonight or whatever. I was on North Avenue. I'm a foot soldier, all right?
Gotcha.
The queen says go fight, I'm going to go fight, all right? I'll figure out the fight once I get there, in which I did, all right?
No. And I'm glad that you did. I'm glad that Dr. K and any one of us can inspire you to make that decision. That's not the type of last minute I'm talking about. Because again, it's not that you didn't want to know, you literally just didn't know.
Oh, I got you.
You know what I'm saying? You just didn't know, but when you were informed, your fire was lit. I'm saying that we have educational advocates, those who call up here, those who call my colleague Dr. K show, those who you probably know, Apache. We have folks that know and see these things coming. They understand the trends of decisions. They can understand, how these things play out. we need to bring them into the conversation a lot sooner, or at least they need to bring the community into the conversation a lot sooner. So that way there's not this mad dash. And then if things don't go the way we want them to go, we say, well, see, they messed up. We got to be there at the conversation a lot sooner. I get that this is a hurtful moment. What I'm saying, though, is we got a legislative session that's kicking off in January down in Annapolis. I'm letting everybody else know that on November 14th.
Right.
That's happening all the way up through April. They're going to talk about some school issues down in Annapolis. Call your state person to tell them that you want to be a part of that effort to get certain bills moved. You see what I'm saying? That's at the beginning.
Yeah, I got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead, brother. Your questions that you had earlier.
Yeah.
You know, number one, it was a packed house. It was full.
Okay, great.
I had to sit in the overflow. Which is on the third floor. Okay, and that was packed. That was standing room only in the overflow.
Right.
Okay. All right. Number two, with the one caller said about earlier, the special education speaker, he was correct. You know, they kind of hammered them on some of the special education issues, but it really boiled down to non-students. All right. I was there for the whole show. I was there when everybody was leaving. I was like the last guy sitting in there. All right, on the overflow part, and I seen their reasoning for why they was going to close the school. It came down to 4 issues. 2 of the issues they themselves admitted that they had made progress in. Okay, two of the 4. The other 2 one was special education, and it had boiled down to 9 students out of the 40 special education students that the school had. All right. And they had fixed that issue. That was a governance issue. That was a leadership issue as far as the hiring would happen with in year 2. Okay, they fixed that issue. He talked. The representatives talked about that. All right. So that issue was being mitigated. The other issue, it seemed that it was personal. In my opinion, the whole thing seemed personal, and that's my opinion coming in the door. Okay, just seeing what was presented to me. Okay, it seemed personal because the one council member, commissioner, you know, has said, well, you know, when they was talking about leadership and hiring practices, it was, well, you've had issues like that before. And when it came down to, not okay, what you're doing right now, but before. And when it came down to the special education with the student, the minimum amount of students that was impacted, it was, well, look what happened to us. We was under consent decree. You remember that?
Yep.
So it wasn't necessarily about the what was happening to that charter school. It was about their own historical failures that they didn't want to see repeated, or they didn't want to see happen to themselves.
Right.
They tried to paint a trend that I just didn't see out of 4 years. If you talk about 4 years in a charter school, I didn't see that trend myself. You know, and I looked at the evidence. Okay, so I think that they was looking at some of the questions and the personal attacks that they was using. I'm going to go over all of them. You know, people can look kind of research and look at the video itself.
Yeah.
But some of the personal attacks that they was using against them, and it seems as though that they already had their minds made up, coming in the door.
There it is.
And
there it is.
And for it not to be an elected board, I didn't even know that. For it not to be an elected board, and for them to seemingly, again, to an outsider, my kids don't go to school in Baltimore City, okay? So I'm completely unbiased. I was just an outsider coming in, all right, to support. It looked like they didn't have an agenda. Now, I don't know what that agenda was. I don't know what the historical, issues that they might have had, political or whatever the case might be. But it did seem like there was an agenda, and it was unstoppable because it's not an elected. There's no recourse. There was no mentorship. They talked about Morgan mentoring them. The school said, "Yeah, we have Morgan, mentoring us." But the school board never came back and said, "Well, we the next year we're going to kind of take over a little bit, more than we have, be a little more hands-on, and we're going to mentor you." There was no recourse like that. There was no option.
Hey, and Apache, I gotta let you go, but I appreciate that because I'm glad you gave that insight as a person that's outside of the system, to not be as biased. Let's go to Paul W., East Baltimore. That's a good point. Paul, I'm good. Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. I was listening and things like that, and I guess I'm motivated or like the Black Panthers of the old days. Really, anything I could do to help these kids to stop them from downfall or being locked up like animals and things like that, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
the thing you were saying about us being up forward and things like that, they don't let us into those private meetings. I work for one of the agencies now, and I'm supposed to be a representative, and we find out stuff. I found out stuff that I can't even give them the membership that I represent any answers because I never got to answer those questions. You know, like you say, when you come in there, they already got it down pat, and then a lot of commissioners are on all the boards around the city, and it's kind of crazy, you know, because I told you once before I went down Mount Washington, and they was in there doing cyber stuff and making robots and things like that. Now kids are very, very capable of doing it. But to get back to it, the city schools failed that long time ago with the special needs, and the state didn't stop giving them money and things like that. I just think that they should be more with the success and things that they're doing and the success that the black male schools are having around the country. I think one school, I think out of Columbus or something, has got 100% success where they go to college and things like it and come back and help out. That they should be more forthcoming and include us in the meetings instead of having us erratic and stuff at the last.
Well, now, Paul, real quick, because I got to let you go. But, Paul, you and I both know, you already said it yourself, then nobody's going to give you no power. Nobody's giving you anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many of you probably tell your children that very early on? You have to earn that. You have to work for it. Nobody's going to give you a chance to make decisions about something that they have a vested interest in themselves. They ain't not going to just give that to you. So if we're expecting that we're going to be waiting a long time for that to happen. My thing is, if we're talking about changing some things dramatically, we're saying a public elected school board, that's a conversation that we need to have with the state. That's the conversation you need to have with your delegate. That's the conversation you need to have with the governor's administration. I mean, that's the conversation that you need to have on that level, right? As much as you talk to the mayor and to the city council folks. But there's got to be consistent. There has to be consistency in the effort. That's another principle of organizing, folks. Another principle. And I'm going to say it again, because when we talk this school stuff, let's not forget, we're about to go into the holiday season. But trust me and believe that many people we can go hard just hard in the paint. But then we forget or we lose that same passion come January. Make your way. There is a Baltimore Day in Annapolis on February the 4th. I'm telling you that now. But you got to make sure that your face is in the place. Don't expect anybody, whether it's a politician or institution, to give you any power to dictate your own destiny. It's not going to happen. You got to get that power. You got to take that power for yourself. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, Clarence, Dwayne, and Donna, I'm going to got you. Also in the second half, we're going to talk to Baltimore native MSU alumni, national comedian, Mr. Jason Weems, about his upcoming special, Unknown. That's right. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So stay riding with us for the culture right here on your source for cool jazz and more, WEAA 88.9 FM.
Support for WEAA is provided by New Psalmist Baptist Church, inviting you to Fresh Fire 4, Tuesday, November 27th through Thursday, the 29th. Guest preachers include Dr. Charles Booth, Bishop Marvin Sapp.
What I'm going to do is so ridiculous. I want you to tell everybody, Mama, I don't know why he did it, but I'm so glad he did.
And Bishop Paul Morton.
Go into the enemy's camp, and you got to take back everything that the devil has taken away.
More info available at newpsalmist.org. Bishop Walter Thomas, Sr., Pastor.
And members like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandy Mallory, the Public Service Director and host of Cool Vibes with the Neo Soul Cafe, heard during the middays, Monday through Friday. I want to take a moment to thank each of you for your assistance during the fall membership drive. Whether a large or small donation, each one stood for something. Your desire to keep WEAA available for everyone. There is still a need for your support. Please consider sending your tax-deductible donation to WEAA.org. Support your community radio station today.
Our world is more connected than ever. Technology has brought us closer together and helped move us further apart. So who you choose to listen to matters. I'm Joshua Johnson, the host of 1A. There's more than just knowing what everybody's talking about. You need to really understand it too. Get involved. Speak freely on 1A from WAMU and NPR. Weekdays from 10 a.m. to noon here on WEAA 88.9 FM.
Celebrating 40 years of broadcasting. Morgan EAA FM and HD1, Baltimore.
Stop traffic southbound 95 between Waterloo Road and Skaggsville Road and a crash blocking off the right lane if you're traveling southbound if you're between 216 and Patuxent River Bridge. Heavy volume southbound 395 between Conway Street and 95. Interloop 695 is congested between Washington Boulevard and Liberty Road and again between Reisterstown Road and Harford Road. Outer loop expect delays between 95 and Emerson Avenue and again between 95 and Can't Meet Road. Eastbound 70, heavy delays between Patapsco River Bridge and 695, and westbound you'll be jammed between 270 and 15. A crash reported westbound 70 before 17, stop and go traffic from 40. If you're traveling along 83, you'll be inching northbound between Fayette Street and Northern Parkway, and northbound 895, stop and go traffic from Poteet Street and the Harbor Tunnel. Northbound 95, you'll be backed up between 216 and 100. This report is sponsored by Sylvan and Home Tutoring, Sylvan's Anytime, Anywhere Tutoring. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Margot Burr with your Baltimore area.
The measure forward. Speaking at the White House today, the president said the measure is aimed at getting former inmates back into the workforce.
The legislation I'm supporting today contains many significant reforms, including the following. First, it will provide new incentives for low-risk inmates to learn the skills they need to find employment, avoid old habits, and follow the law when they're released from prison.
The incentives would include vocational training and educational coursework. It would also give judges more discretion when sentencing nonviolent offenders, including drug offenders. Senate Majority Leader McConnell is blocking a bipartisan effort to protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into potential ties between the Trump campaign and Russia. Comes just a week after Attorney General Jeff Sessions was fired. The president elevated an acting attorney general who's expressed skepticism of the ongoing probe.
Outgoing GOP Senator Jeff Flake is pledging not to support any Republican-nominated judicial nominees until legislation to protect the Mueller investigation gets a vote. This could block judicial confirmations, at least at the committee level, for the rest of the year.
The 21 nominations that are in the Judiciary Committee waiting for a vote there will not receive a vote, nor will I give my vote to the 32 nominations that are sitting here on the Senate floor.
The confirmation of judges has been a key agenda item for Republicans in the Senate. McConnell objected to voting on the Mueller protection bill, explaining that he felt there was no danger of the probe being ended prematurely. Tim Mack, NPR News, Washington.
After a marathon meeting, UK Prime Minister Theresa May says her cabinet is backing her controversial draft agreement to leave the European Union. Here's NPR's Frank Langford in London.
The agreement has already come under intense political fire. Brexiteers in May's Conservative Party said it will keep the UK inside the EU's customs area indefinitely, preventing the country from breaking free of EU law and regulations. May acknowledged the agreement will face scrutiny in the days ahead, but said it was the best deal the UK could get.
The choice was this deal, which enables us to take back control and to build a brighter future for our country, or going back to square one, with more division, more uncertainty, and a failure to deliver on the referendum.
Leaders of EU countries are expected to weigh in on the agreement later this month. Then comes what could be the biggest challenge, getting it through Britain's parliament. Frank Langford, NPR News, London.
Stocks posted their fifth consecutive session loss today as traders pushed up bond prices and tech sector stocks foundered. The Dow was down 205 points today. The Nasdaq fell 64 points. You're listening to NPR News. Authorities in Northern California say they've arrested 6 people on suspicion of looting homes that were evacuated when a deadly wildfire swept through the area. The Butte County Sheriff's Office says deputies found 2 men hiding inside a home in the town of Paradise. The remaining 4 individuals were arrested in other nearby communities in possession of items police say appear to have been stolen. The fire in Northern California has claimed at least 48 lives, destroyed 7,600 homes, and displaced more than 50,000 people. Fires are also burning in Southern California.
88.9 FM reminds you that the views expressed on WEAA programs are those of participants and not necessarily those of Morgan State University, the staff, management, or underwriters of Baltimore's home for cool jazz. WEAA 88.9 FM.
I do this for my culture, 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 I do this for my culture, culture, culture. I do this for my culture, culture, culture.
I'm ready. Peace and welcome back to For the Culture right here on your source for cool jazz and more. WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. Absolutely the voice of the community. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and riding with me, folks. We're continuing the conversation just for a few more moments as we talk about school closures and district decisions. What's your take on what happened at last night's school board meeting? Let's go to Dwayne out of Baltimore City. Dwayne. What's your take, Dwayne?
Well, look, no one's going to deny this is a tragedy, but I think that we're getting a little too riled up, without, I think what you guys need to do, the media, we need to get somebody from the school board or somebody, the city councilman for the district where that school is located, or somebody to come down to and explain to us why the decision was made to close the school. I mean, my heart goes out to the students and to the guy that's promoting the school, but I still haven't heard enough to convince me that this was just a malicious, mean-spirited decision. Okay, and then when you take into context, the continuous, decline of the charter school, population, we got to take a more than a serious look, at the system as a whole. But,
yeah.
We definitely want, for kids to go to schools that are going to prepare them academically, be great students, and be great men. We want that for sure. Okay, but, the other side of this thought process as well is, okay, if you operate in such a great school, okay, and I believe that they were, how could you not be great at the administrative stuff? You know what I'm saying? The very things that are required to keep the school open in the first place. I mean, you got to be top notch at that. We can't keep coming to the table, not, with our stuff up to snuff and then expect, special treatment. Okay. Like I said, my heart goes out. Okay. I've listened to this, but I keep hearing it from one side. I don't hear an in-depth discussion from the people who make the decisions or the people in charge of the school, the district that we haven't heard from the mayor. Why can't you guys get somebody on the line so that we can hear more details? Okay, because we keep keeping one side of the story. We keep getting all riled up. But I think, we may be investing our energy prematurely. Because if this just isn't a bad situation, then we can just look into starting a private school and using these administrators to handle the academics, and we get some more professionals to handle the administrative work. You see what I'm saying?
Well, you know what, Dwayne, and I hear you. And we have certainly done our due diligence in reaching out to the school board. Also, just to let you know, I think that when you have public meetings, right, I don't think the school board members feel like they need to go on a second round of campaigns, a second campaign to explain why a decision was made when you have a public meeting. I just don't think that that's what they're thinking. Now, we may not agree with the decision, and the decision may not totally be clear to us, but if you have a public meeting for your company and then 10 people showed up, is it your responsibility to go out and talk to the other people that didn't show up, or is it the responsibility of those who were there to respond and to respond a certain way? So that's what I'm saying. Like this wasn't like a closed door meeting. This was a public meeting, which is why the Baltimore Sun and other publications and other media outlets were present.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like we can have that conversation, but according to the reports, the problems with special education, financial management, and operations, I've talked to individuals who have worked in charter schools. They get low enrollment. They might be poor performance from the school, from the students. I mean, these are things that we know. We don't need to have. I don't personally think that I need to hear a step-by-step reason as to why you're closing the school, as much as, okay, these things have been happening. The school board had cited in the meeting that there were persistent problems.
Mm-hmm.
Persistent. So my thing is, and I agree, and I hear you, but my thing is, okay, if we've had persistent problems at one of our key institutions, then we should be preparing ourselves for a day when that situation may become an issue to our own sustainability. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think that is absolutely correct. But here's the challenge.
Yeah,
the challenge is that the people are not satisfied. And although they made an official, decision at a school board night, there is a groundswell of voting public that is not satisfied. So sometimes that requires, okay, well, what we may need to do is to explain a little more so that the public is satisfied, because then what we need to do then at that point is we need to, find which politician is closest to this issue and vote them out. So no, they have to respond to us, but we have to organize in such a way so they'll believe that we really want to know more about this issue.
Absolutely, I got you. No, I got you. I hear you.
A little bit more versus, when we made a decision, we the school board, so we're the top dogs. Y'all be quiet. No,
and I agree with you. Right. And then you know what? You're absolutely right. Dwayne, thank you. I gotta let you go, but I appreciate you. Let's go to Donna from downtown Baltimore. Then we ended out with Clarence. Donna, what's your take?
Well, I mean, I expected it. I mean, they already knew what the decision was. They made a vote before they even got there. They just had to hold a public meeting, just, to follow, open meeting, public meetings, the state regulations on open meetings. Charter schools are quasi-public. They're half public and half private.
Mm-hmm.
And so the school system actually could have done like a form of a receivership, where they could have taken over the 2 or 3 areas that were weak, taken them over and restructured them, gotten rid of the bad staff or trained them, and then given them a chance, after a year, let them with the training and the oversight, start operating, because now they have the training and the skills. What they did was they didn't do that. And that's a problem. That's the problem I have, because when you have a quasi-public type of situation, the leadership group, which is the city and then the state, they have a responsibility. Okay, well, maybe there's some training issues. Let's bring some oversight of seniors over there to oversight and train. Oh, there's some financial issues. My other point is, Baltimore City, eventually the disability city is going to have to come about again, because the city is still not in compliance. There's a lot of discrimination against kids with special needs. There's a lot of issues just in our school systems with the kids with special needs, and the city is not free of those issues too. And my final point is, okay, you have your charter schools, you have your public schools. You cannot tell me that the public schools are not being managed properly. They're not being managed properly. There's money that's not. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you can take the charter schools they close and look at the public schools that are open and see whether are these public schools doing in the same conditions that those charter schools, and there's some definitely big issues. Because we have public schools that are not functioning now.
Right.
And they're telling this charter schools that have better, their academically doing well, there was some administrative stuff. What they do in the state, for example, if an agency doesn't do well, they will get rid of the administrator or they'll reshuffle around or get the people in there. And there was no effort by the schools. Okay, the disability, you're not correcting the issue by disability issues. Well, then send some experts in there to help you restructure and do it. Don't just say, we gave you a year. You are the head agency that's supposed to be guiding them and make it work. What they're doing, when you go to college, the goal of that college is to get you to graduate. They don't, like in medical school, one big thing you hear a lot in medical school is once you get in medical school, they have to make sure you finish. You don't get in there and they flunk you out. And so the Baltimore City has dropped the ball. In my opinion, it's part of the Jim Crow system because the Jim Crow system is still operating within this system. It's never been a functional system when I was in school, and that was 40 years ago. So now we're looking at 2018 and we're seeing the same thing. Why we can't get together? Because when white institutionalized racism starts from the top and it trickles down, and then they use African Americans to continue to maintain that system.
I hear you, Donna.
So we have to be really more deeply conscious, and we do have to go to our delegations, our Black delegations, Baltimore City. I don't know whether they're going to do anything, but because they haven't been able to do anything so far. And on the multiple delegates and senators we've had in the last 30 or 40 years, so I don't know what else they can do because they have to fight the whole system at that level. So I'll listen, and thanks so much for
you're welcome. Thank you so much, Donna. A lot of systemic issues that play that. Let me get my final caller on this. Mr. Lou Fields, who's checking in, who said he was also there at the school board meeting last night. Lou, thank you so much, sir, for being here. What's your take on this whole situation?
Well, for Raji, I got there at 4:30, and the agenda has many items, including the Banneker Blake Academy.
Yeah.
There's 4 or 5 other schools that they're talking about closing in the future times.
Yeah.
And then the first 10 people who come and sign in are allowed to speak. Now, they signed in for all different things, not just Banneker Blake. But what Banneker Blake was asked to do by the school board commissioners was to answer 4 items of compliance. One item was your house in, I believe, the Winston Elementary School. It's old. Can you find a new building? Mr. Stokes and his board found the new building, the St. Ambrose School up on Park Heights.
Gotcha.
So that answer was given. Then the board says, but do you have a contract? And Mr. Stokes says, we can't enter into a contract with them until we have a contract from you. The next thing they asked about, last year or two, the school, Banneker Blake, ended the year with $30,000. The school board commissioner said, but that's not enough. Can you get more money in your bank so we know you have a reserve? Last year, the school ended with $115,000. So they met that requirement. But unfortunately, the school board said you only partially met both of those 2 requirements. Then there was 2 other requirements. One was, how are you dealing with special education students? And the school is only 4 years old. So in the second year, they had some problems. Those problems in Mr. Stokes' report were corrected. The last issue they talked about was performance and management. And that was in Mr. Stokes' report handled. But again, the school board disagreed with those 2 points. And basically it boils down to, what do you believe? The school board had a report. Mr. Stokes' team had a report saying they had answered all 4. school board said we accept 2, but we reject 2. And as opposed to there being a compromise to say, well, we just getting your report, Mr. Stokes, so let's have a little more time. We'll deliberate and we'll maybe get more fact-finding done. The school board went right into a vote immediately. Mr. Stokes had 4 minutes to present his case. 4 minutes to talk about education and educating black boys. 4 minutes. So that was almost impossible to do from the start. Mm-hmm. And so what we see here is a situation where it's kind of in the school board's favor when you go to your hearing and everybody's there. It's like 300 people there, man. All the rooms are packed. But you only have 4 minutes. So it was kind of tilted against the school.
Lou Fields, thank you so much for checking in and sharing what happened at last night's meeting, folks. I mean, of course, we know that there are many layers to this. More importantly, I think that there are some things that the school board could do, but then I think there are some lessons to learn from us from our response. And I can't stress enough, understanding the process of how how decisions are made, the governance of the school board system is made and it is done, being there at the beginning of the conversation. So we have an opportunity, even though we may have missed, this Banneker Blake and other schools from being closed and rezoned, there's still an opportunity for us to learn something. There's still an opportunity for us to be on the front part of the deal instead of the back end of the deal. There's still an opportunity for us to be proactive and not just reactive. There's still an opportunity for us to build the relationships and gain the type of power that we need, that come September of next year, we would be in a much better place, especially for those schools that we love and adore and admire and support. And there is still an opportunity for us to look at the larger landscape of charter schools in the city of Baltimore. And there are many of them from East Baltimore, West Baltimore, South Baltimore. There are all these charter schools. What do we do to make them stronger? What efforts can we put behind it? What resources can we put behind it? How can we volunteer to make our charter schools stronger? How can we make sure that they have much more professional and qualified staffing there at the schools? I mean, there's still opportunities for us to not have the same conversation come November of next year. We just got to be able to take that opportunity and truly, truly run with it. I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll be switching gears a little bit. We'll be talking to one of Baltimore's funniest people, Mr. Jason Weems, talk to his wife, Dion, talk about his life, his upcoming comedy special, Unknown. We'll talk about everything Baltimore, and we'll talk about his death. Yeah, his death. I'll give you more details about that. So stay riding with us. There's a whole lot coming up here on For the Culture for the second hour, here on your source for cool jazz and more, WEAA 88.9 FM. We'll be right back. Peace and welcome back to For the Culture right here on your source for cool jazz and more. WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. Absolutely the voice of the community. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and riding with us. All right, folks, upon the time for us to switch gears a little bit. We are joined. I got some wonderful guests in the studio with me right now that are just, I mean, they're really family. And I'm very, very happy because they're on here talking about an upcoming comedy special, folks, that you don't want to hear. Already, if you have Facebook and you're friends with my guest, Mr. Jason Weems, Ms. Dion Weems, you already know that there's something special that's about to happen on December 1st, Saturday, December 1st at Center Stage. Something really, really major. Dion is certainly the CEO of Audacity. That's right.
Thank you.
Yes, and Jason, he's just a comedian.
I'm just a comedian.
So
there ain't no letters in front of it.
He's just a comedian.
Yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian.
You're a stand-up
I'm
comedian.
a stand-up comedian. Yes,
You're a
some comedians-
nationally known stand-up comedian.
I'm a nationally known stand-up comedian right here from Baltimore City, man.
Well, Baltimore City. Both of you and Dion are from Baltimore, but more importantly, you are Morgan State alumni.
I was Mr. Morgan.
You were Mr. Morgan.
I was Mr. Freshman, Mr. Sophomore, Mr. Junior, Mr. Morgan. Sweeped them.
You swept them.
Swept.
Wait a minute. Consistently.
That's what happened.
All consecutive.
The first We year, all went in the dustpans. The first year I ran for Mr. Freshman, it was like 10 dudes that ran against me.
Right.
From like Connecticut and all these different places.
Right.
One dude's platform was he was going to clean up Greenmount. Yo, we laughed so hard in this dude's face. We was like, yo, how 3 mayors and 2 police commissioners ain't cleaned up Greenmount, but Mr. Freshman gonna do it. You walking down Greenmount with a sash on. Good luck. Yo. So I beat him, obviously. And then after that, yo. But no, tell him your platform. My first year platform was I was going to eradicate the bees. It was a bunch of bees by the trash cans.
Okay.
And I ran on that platform and I won.
Wait, are you serious?
I won. I didn't live on campus. I lived in Sedonia, and I caught the bus back up to the campus one night to check the election thing on the door, SGA door, back in McKeldin Center. This old Morgan.
Right.
This ain't the new student center. This ain't that glossy stuff. We was in McKeldin Center with the wobbly bridge. Wobbly. If your bridge ain't wobble, you ain't go to Morgan. That's it. Do it for the culture.
You know what? You want to take it way back? I remember when we were broadcasting from the McKeldin Center.
Mm-hmm.
We had a studio. That joint wasn't as modern as this one, folks. You had to walk up steps, and then it was like these long hallways. The studio was all the way in the back in the corner. We probably even could have about 2 people.
Right.
In the studio, you know what I'm saying? Then they were like, "Yeah, man, we got to move y'all because y'all because there were problems with the building." We were like,
"Right, what type of problems?"
But you said that your platform was to
eradicate the bees. I had no clue that I would win. I was just playing around. It was just a way to meet new people.
Right.
I was throwing out lollipops on the bridge. I was like, don't be a dum-dum, eat a dum-dum. Vote. Like, it was like the stupidest stuff.
I wish she was lying. That would make, because our children are listening to this.
Our children are listening.
Oh my God.
Second year when I ran for Mr. Sophomore, I cut out, this is when Drew Hill was big in Baltimore.
Right.
How deep is your love for me and all that?
Yeah.
So I rewrote the song, How Deep Is Your Vote for Me? Tell me what it's gonna be. And I'll be on the bridge singing, throwing money in the air.
You threw real money?
No, it was
the Monopoly money.
Oh my God.
No, actually, I made counterfeit money on York Road in the Staples. You know the Staples on York Road across from the belt?
From the church?
Yeah. I used to go in there and run off counterfeit money.
And the janitorial staff was pissed.
What?
Because
wait a minute. Hold on. So wait a minute. So Jason, you were the originator of Making It Rain.
Literally. I remember one day I was on the bridge. It was raining. You remember how you
No. Okay, so you have a show that's coming.
Oh, I do have a show.
December
Right, I'm sorry.
1st.
We get sidetracked
Yes.
from time to time.
December, but what's great is that the question has continued to be asked, what can you expect to see from Jason? Well, people, you just got a little taste.
That's a
little sprinkle.
No, that's a this is going to be funny, folks. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, more with Jason and Dion. The show is called Unknown. It is a comedy special you don't want to miss. It's going to be happening on Saturday, December 1st at Center Stage. Yours truly, our face is going to be up in the place, God willing. It's going to be so much fun. But there is a very serious inspiration behind this fun comedy show. And I'm going to let Jason, I'm going to let Dion tell you about what that inspiration is, because it's absolutely mind-blowing what goes through the mind of a comic. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right.
What goes through the mind of a comic. Plus, I want to hear your thoughts about this. Hit us up on our phone lines, 410-319-8888, 410-319-8888. If you got some questions for the Chief Energy Officer of Audacity Inc., the Audacity Group, excuse me. You say, who's that? That's Dion.
Tell her I said, hey.
I didn't.
Who's that? Hey, Otis. How you doing?
The Chief Energy Officer of Audacity Group.
I see you, baby.
They riding with us. A whole lot coming up in the final 30 of Southern Otis? Right here on WEA 88.9.
Hey, Colin, hit my phone. Hit my phone, Otis.
Are invited to the Oldies But Goodies Memory Lane Meet and Greet. It's time to put the names with the faces of all those that enjoy the Oldies But Goodies extravaganza. So let's get together, have breakfast, and talk music and memories on Saturday, November 17th, right here at WEAA between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. And guess what? Breakfast is on me. Visit WEAA, enjoy the show live, and meet the other listeners who enjoy the classics, coffee, and conversation. Come visit me Saturday, November the 17th, and enjoy the Oldies But Goodies extravaganza in person right here at the WEAA studios. I'm Robert Shaheed, host of the Oldies But Goodies. You can RSVP at WEAA.org.
If you're looking for the very best in conversation, great music, and of course, the very best slow jams in the city, make sure you join me, LaDon Black, nightly, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., Monday through Friday, right here on your community station, the station that's your source for cool jazz and so much more, WEAA 88.9 FM.
From Randallstown to Greenbelt and everywhere in between, we're loud and kicking. The voice of the community, WEAA 88.9 FM.
For my culture. I do this for my culture. I do this for my culture.
All right, peace and welcome back to For the Culture here on your source for cool jazz and more, WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. Absolutely the voice of the community. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for checking in and riding with me for the final 30, folks. In the studio is some great people, man. Great people. Jason Weems, national comic, native of Baltimore, alumni of Morgan State University. And then we have Ms. Dion Weems, who is
I'm gonna do my intro.
This
one
ain't
more
gonna end
time.
well.
This isn't all right. And you have Dion Joyner Weems.
Dion Joyner Weems.
Dion Joyner Weems.
She's serious about the hype.
Why do you get mad about this?
Oh, I don't get mad about it. I'm just saying you're serious about it. I was passing that knowledge on to this brother.
I see.
Because it's for the culture.
It's for the culture.
It is.
Oh.
That's a hard intro you got too, man.
Thank you.
I was drove into a guardrail listening to that one. I was getting hyped right by the Horseshoe Casino.
Big shout out to Rick Ross.
Yeah. Oh, that joint is fire, man.
Shout out to Rick Ross and Jay.
If you got the little JL, that's fire,
you know what I'm
man.
saying? Hey, Ricky. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You crazy for this one. You crazy for this one,
You crazy for this one, Rick.
And this is what we would have missed. I'm serious. Like every time I bump into Faraji, he comes up to me. He's like, Dion, I really don't understand how he died.
Like he keeps looking at me like he's really surprised. Like, how does that happen? I'm like,
I was trying to get to that. I know. Because honestly, let's the $64,000 question is that you decided to do this show unknown,
right?
Based on not a near-death experience,
no, a death experience,
a real death experience.
Yeah.
All right, talk to us.
And it was death. You know when black people say things twice,
like
it's
I'm
for
really
real. Bro, I'm cold right now. It's hot out here. You hungry? Or you hungry?
No, I'm angry.
Right. So yeah, May 3rd last year, May 3rd, 2017, I drove up to Philly to do a show. Supposed to be closing the show out, doing 45 minutes that night. 2 minutes into my set, I feel this aggressive asthma attack coming on. And I've had asthma my entire life. Always can tell when it's going to be a severe attack. Puffed my inhaler twice, thinking that was going to clear things up. It got worse. Went out on the sidewalk, trying to get some fresh air, clear things out a little bit. Literally went black at that point. From what I was told, third-party accounts, I coded right there in the venue. So eyes in the back of my head turned blue, no heartbeat, no pulse for 5 minutes. Woke up 16 hours later in a Philadelphia hospital with a ventilator in my throat and hand restraints because I woke up and wilded out on somebody like in the middle of the night trying to get the tube out. But even at that point, I still didn't know that I had died. I just thought it was a severe asthma attack. That next morning, when the doctors coming to do their rounds, they say, we lost you for 5 minutes last night. And I'm thinking he's joking because he knows that I'm a comic. And he stone-faced me. And he's like, no, literally, you were gone. And when that type of weight hits you, it changes you. It gives you great perspective. It gives you, it lets you know how flimsy this thing really is. So I actually started writing jokes about it as I laid in the hospital bed.
Wow.
Because that's how, I can't speak for all comics, but at least me, I see the world through jokes. So something can horrible happen. And in the midst of my grief, there's another part in the back of my mind that sees the funny in it simultaneously. Now, they say comedy is tragedy plus time. Tragedy plus time equals comedy. Like, you couldn't do a 9/11 joke on 9/12. But a year later, 2 years later, you may find something that's interesting, that's humorous about it, that actually brings people together.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things you gotta, respect the material. So I started writing these ideas, what I thought was funny about, what I had found out up to that point, what I had found out about, the whole experience. And then when I came back home, the main thing is they had me listed in the hospital as unknown. So
right.
I looked down at my arm in the hospital bed and I see it says unknown. And I'm like, this is weird because I know they had my wallet and everything else.
Because when I called to see.
How did you know where he was?
Now that's the power of social media. When Jason collapsed, everyone started running to social media asking who knows Jason Weems' family, closest kin. And it was like a lightning bolt went through Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And
so he collapsed you collapsed outside of the club.
They had brought me back inside, I guess, to try to give me some water or something. Yeah. Coded right there in the club. Phone was locked. They didn't have my personal information. So the booker just tweeted into literally, who knows it, Jay Weems Comedy's family. And people just started retweeting it and sending messages on Facebook. Lo, do you got Jason's wife's number? No, let me get this other person.
My girlfriend Shalonda, who was in Vegas, got a message. It was like 12 o'clock at night. She called Grass.
Brian Robinson.
Brian comes over to the house, 12:30, banging on the door. All of our children are asleep. I fall down the steps, open it up, and he's like, Dion, I don't have a lot of news, but Jason, he's gone. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? He's confused. And it was tense. But to know that fast forward to drive all the way to Philly, get there, and I'm like, Jason Weems, I'm here for Jason Weems. And they're like, ma'am,
we don't have a Jason Weems.
So I'm like, oh my fuck. Like, I'm sorry to, and I apologize to offend anyone, but to understand, to be a widow, okay? We have 3 children under the age of 7. Our oldest is 7. Our twins are 5. So in a moment to now realize that 2 hours ago, everything was fine, right? hey, have a good show, you go to sleep at night. But to then realize, oh my God, what am I going to say to the boys tomorrow?
And they're all three boys.
All three boys.
Right.
So that was a
type of moment.
Type of moment.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it was this whole thing of trying to turn what seemed to be a negative situation back into a positive. So I feel like there's a silver lining in everything. I feel like there's humor in everything. So I was like, this is not something that I should shy away from. This isn't something that, happened to me and I keep it back in the back somewhere. I want to share this with people. I want to say, hey, this thing happened and I came back better. So that's the
So it was an asthma attack gone wrong? What was the source?
Well, no asthma attacks go right. Oh, that was a good asthma attack. I feel lovely after that.
That was rich.
Right. It's severe.
If y'all could see my face,
right?
Like he just took that and just went right with it.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right, Jason.
Yeah, it was a severe asthma attack, and just no air was getting anywhere. And at that point, I was out for 5 minutes without a heartbeat or a pulse. At say 3:30 is when they say brain damage typically hits and sets in. So to be able to come back, to still have presence of mind, I haven't felt any lapses at any point. And in some ways, I actually feel sharper and clearer than before, whether that's through kind of cutting out the clutter, the perspective that this gives you as far as, what's really important. Like after you die, like that Comcast bill ain't going to stress you but so much.
Right. So you have a new lease on life at this moment.
To a certain degree. Yeah.
How do you, I've heard people talk about Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
And his experience.
Yeah.
Once he got through that fire and he came back and blew away the audience talking about that.
Right.
But just in terms of thinking of an individual, you say you see the world through jokes. I mean, how do you make fun?
Right.
How do you find the silver lining? How do you find the humor in causing your wife just a few moments of just complete
right
causing your sons and thinking, I mean, how do you find the humor in a moment like that?
Because comedy comes out of tension. Like whenever you hear the biggest pops in a club, in a theater, it's because that comic is taking you to a place where you're either tense for a good reason, for a bad reason. And then when they release that tension, that's when the laugh goes up in the air. So the tenser the situation, the more opportunity for comedy. So in a situation like this, where you're thinking about death, when you're thinking about pain and all these types of things, it's the exact opposite to it. So it makes it stand out even more. So if you got something that's really, really, really dark, and then you show something that's really, really, really light, it makes that light feel even better.
Much brighter.
Yeah.
Much brighter.
So what's your relationship to God right now?
I don't know. I mean, I love him. I love him.
I mean, I would think.
I mean, I felt some kind of way initially. Right. People telling me all that type of stuff. They're like, hey, God, you talk about Jason, you better hold on to God's unchanging hand. I'm like, I held on, he let go. You talking to the wrong person, man. I don't know. Because when I came back, people were asking me those obvious questions like, did you see the light?
Did you see the light?
Did you hear the trumpet and all this type of stuff? And I'm like, I didn't. It was nothing.
There's nothing.
I remember dark. I remember not. Just it felt like sleep. I mean,
there was but do you have a renewed faith?
I have a renewed faith in prednisone. You got to keep that prednisone in your travel bags, ladies and gentlemen. It really keeps down the inflammation.
Right.
But no. Absolutely. It when you say a new lease on life, it makes stress feel good. You know, anybody that's a parent, you know how it is. You it's been a long day, and your kids, you know, they've asked one question too many. You feel that knot in your neck, and, you know, you're still trying to be a good parent. You know, choose the right words.
You try to think about the textbook, the textbook response,
absolutely,
versus the cultural response.
Yeah.
I don't want my baby laying on the couch talking about this, you know, 20 years later.
Right.
You're trying to do it right.
Yeah.
So you did have, Dion, did you guys have a conversation with the boys about what happened?
We did. And for a while, it scared them. Yeah. And every time that Jason would leave out, it's like, you know, Daddy, don't die.
Yeah. One of my twins says that literally every time I leave the door. Because they see me, it's a routine. So they see, you know, Daddy will have on his sweatpants. But then when they see me put on my jeans, they're like, oh, Daddy got a show. It's like my jeans take me to some like Daddy putting on his fancy pants. Daddy got on his jeans and his New Balance. He must be going to make some money. But every time I leave out, they see me grab my duffel bag and so on and so forth. I'm walking out the door and they say, Daddy, don't die. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart literally every single time.
Wow.
Because it makes you make that choice. It's like, you know, I love stand-up comedy. I love that feeling of feeling that laugh to come back at you. But I love my kids more. Yeah. So it's like, okay, which one do I want to do? So it makes you make those choices. Like, do I want to keep pursuing this long term? It's one of these things, you know, do I reinvent comedy in a different way? Yeah. Do I make stand up into this? I
want to, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Jason Weems. We're talking to Dion Joyner Weems. We're talking about the Unknown comedy special that's based upon the fact that Jason Weems died.
Yeah.
He died for 5 minutes, and now he has come back to tell his story, and he will be telling it in a big, big way. No bigger way, I mean, unless you're in a different city, but in the city of Baltimore, you tell it in a big way. You're going to be doing this big comedy special at Center Stage, Saturday, December the 1st. Shows at 7 o'clock p.m. and 10 o'clock p.m.
10 is gone.
10 is gone. It's already sold out. 7 o'clock p.m.
And those are approaching. So
those are but you're gonna have this show recorded.
It's being filmed live.
It's going to be filmed.
Live taping.
And we can't give out all the details, but we're talking with some major distributors right now. So this is big for the city. This is a thing. When I saw myself listed as unknown in his hospital bed, and we started concepting the idea of this special, it stuck out. It was unknown how they literally had me listed.
Yeah.
It was unknown the fact of, you know, I've worked with HBO, I've worked with Fox, NBC, I've done Just for Last Festival in Montreal. That's the biggest festival internationally.
Invitation only.
Yeah.
It's invitation only.
All these, you know, it's industry success, but I'm still not a household name. You know, I don't have a sitcom. I don't have, 500,000 followers and whatever.
Right.
So it was unknown for a second layer. It was unknown. Jason's not, a household name. And then it was like Baltimore is unknown.
I mean, that's the reason why, like, if you ask the question, why, Dion, would you even, my first client is Jason. We've known each other.
Because you started, because you really are the CEO of Audacity Group.
Right.
And I'm not saying like the chief energy officer.
No, but in all fairness, to know that for the last 13 years of my life, I've had the honor of marketing the city of Baltimore.
Right.
And being from West Baltimore. So that part, when you talk about, are there two cities? I'm from that part that they're usually speaking of, right?
Right.
So to have that responsibility to now every morning wake up and talk to people and let you know that your perception of us is false, that was a superpower.
Absolutely.
So for Jason to come back from the dead and to realize how it's to wait for someone to acknowledge your power and your presence. We're not doing that anymore. So for Jason to be viewed as unknown and then to think about the city of Baltimore, to know the greatness that we produce every single day, but to still feel like we need to bow our heads when we say where we're from, because we know what the perception is, we're done with that. So unknown is really this statement of, we know this, when you come out on December 1st, this is a celebration. We're celebrating ourselves and welcoming the world to join us.
It's celebrating our city.
Wait, I gotta throw out, because some people may not know, Dion, but you really have been. I just want to make sure I get this correct, because I know this is important. My Be More. What's your role in that that social media movement of My Be More?
So to know that, what was it, last year? It was just an idea. We noticed that in Baltimore, the people here did not see themselves the way that the media perceived them.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized, man, we need to get involved in that conversation. And not only get involved, we need to share it. So across social media, there were about 500 positive posts within a year. Hashtag My Be More went from 500 to what are we now, like 130, 140,000?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in a city. It takes cities like 3 years before they can gain that type of traction. We did it in less than a year. And people ask the question, why? Why? Have you met the people of Baltimore? That's why. So to be able to now have a counter narrative, one place to point. No, it does not cover up the fact that our city has challenges, but there are also people on the ground who have been here long before the cameras addressing them. Let's celebrate them. Let's highlight them.
Yeah.
Let's get them the resources that they need.
Yeah.
But we have got to first recognize that they're there.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely, no doubt. Folks, 410-319-8888 is the number. We're talking to local unknown comedian.
I love the disrespect over the airwaves. I love it. I hope you guys are listening.
Mr. Jason Weems.
They don't do this because I'm light skinned. That's why they treat me like this, because I'm beige.
We're talking about his experiences, his fact that he has he did touch the light, then he woke up. He came back.
He touched the light.
He touched the light, then turned it off and woke up.
I woke back up.
You woke back up. But we know, real all jokes aside, like real talk, like I'm so happy that you were able to come back.
Me too, man. Me too.
I'm serious. I mean,
you can feel
I
seriously.
You know, it's and I think it's important that, you know, as we have these experiences, especially for if, you know, you're out in front of people, that it's important that you share parts of your life like that.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because that brings a certain level of connectedness and relatability that we oftentimes are you know, seeking.
Yeah.
Especially from you guys. I mean, you guys are highly visible. You're out there, as they say, right? So I know that you can certainly kind of appreciate this part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
When we see like a Will and Jada, who put themselves out there.
Right.
Put themselves. Why is she looking at me like this?
The light's about to get dark.
Calling.
I just want to get your
Tell us about 1997.
Shalani, you out there? Feel free to
You
call.
know what I'm saying?
Mommy,
I
Sean.
mean, you know what I mean?
Sean.
I mean, the fact that, you know, putting yourself out there
Yeah.
in a very authentic way.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find it to be a money gimmick. Other people say, you know what? That's the reality. That's the new form of being a high profile celebrity figure.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. You know what? Is he talking about us? Because
I don't know.
No.
No. I'm like, no. Are you talking about like? I don't even see high profile celebrity. Like
I got a Hyundai Sonata.
You do know where we live, right?
2010.
Wait a minute. No, I'm saying. You know what? Y'all can't do it at your job.
I still got a club.
No, real talk. I'm really talking to you because I think that in Baltimore, when we talk about this whole idea of being a local celebrity or a whole idea of putting yourself out there.
Right.
Let me just say that. Putting yourself out there and in an artistic way, creative way. And you can, I mean, people know you. So it's not like
they definitely know. Don't go to Towson Town Center with Dion if you want to get out in less than 30 minutes. You can't even cut through Macy's.
Look, man, but my point is, you know, there's a level of authenticity that I think people appreciate now from those who are in front of them than we have, you know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Or am I wrong in my analysis of that?
Can I jump in? I feel like it's necessary right now with the influx of social media. Like it's you start to believe that you are supposed to look and feel a certain type of way. One of the reasons that when I'm asked, why do you love Baltimore? Because it is the most human city you will ever come in contact with. It's flawed and it's flawless. So when
flawed and flawless,
that was deep right there. We should end the show right there. It's over. What can you say after that? Hey, I got a show. Hey, I got a show on December 1st, and she in here talking about flawed and flawless.
Flawed and flawed. I love it.
See, I can't bring her nowhere. You see that? It's supposed to be about the show. She on here dropping that Maya Angelou quotes. I know how the bird sings.
No, but it's the point, Faraji. Real talk.
Yeah.
Unknown. Baltimore, Faraji, it's the fact that we tend to take for granted. Baltimore, I love you, but we're spoiled. Baltimore is spoiled because we're literally, Faraji is a radio host. I have a friend who is on, a spokesperson for this product. This person hosts the news. And we don't realize that we are really, our friends are our modern day celebrities. I don't purchase any product right now that isn't made by one of my friends. My hair smells like mango coconut from Ayana Woods, Fancy Free Hair Care. Like we're spoiled by the fact that we actually know people that are doing great things, but yet we have to wait for another city like New York to say that, oh, you're hot. Or you have to wait until you're on this national TV show and you're hot.
You got my producer praising over there. Alex is praising.
He's doing the hammer don't hurt him dance in the back.
But it's the fact
that you're right. We don't see the gift of ourselves.
But this is where, Dionne separating herself from where she used to be. And this is the freedom of audacity. This is the freedom of being bold, okay? You can't be in a position where you expect a Michael B. Jordan to come back to Baltimore. Like we get all excited about, Black Panther when we weren't ready to embrace the character from The Wire. Right. So I'm saying
Wallace.
But I'm just saying that
his name was Wallace. That's why no one could embrace him.
That young boy was a talent, right?
Yeah.
He was an aspiring actor. He was an African-American male young actor. Imagine if you, as a city, embraced him, embraced the story, the narrative, take a deeper dive so that when that person, because best believe when you come through Baltimore and you make it through Baltimore, you will be great. Okay. Don't wait for the person to become great to now say, hey, remember us?
Yeah.
Embrace these people now.
Is somebody playing church music?
No, man. This is our. Don't do that.
I heard church music.
You know what? And this song right here is so perfect to this conversation because we chose this song because it's called Hope. That's why we chose the song, because we want each and every day to end on a high level of hope. And folks, look, that's exactly what Jason and Dionne represent here in the city of Baltimore. Hope. Jason is unknown hope, but it's
unknown hope. This dude done played me twice. It's about to be a fight on Pound Parkway.
I want to know my hope. Get your hands up. Get your hands off me.
No, real talk, everybody. Look, you hear the hope, you hear the spirit, you know the passion of Jason Weems, you know the passion of Dionne Joyner Weems. You know what they're all about, but more importantly, you can come out and get to see Jason Weems live and in living color on Saturday, December the 1st, 7:00 p.m. The 10:00 show is already sold out.
Gone.
And so the 7:00, you definitely want to put your face in a place. There's going to be so many things happening before the start of the show. We can't get into the details as of right now, but trust me, this will be a comedy experience you don't want to miss out on. So again, Jason, Dionne, how can folks get tickets? How can they support the work that you guys are doing?
Centerstage.org.
It's that easy. Centerstage.org. Buy the tickets right online, or you can call their box office. And they can take care of you.
The good folks over at Center Stage.
Yeah.
Jason Weems, Dionne Joyner Weems, thank you so much for being on For the Culture. You know this will not be the last time.
I hope not. I want to do these Cornell West hands a couple more times. Look at them Cornell West hands.
Looks good on his Facebook Live.
I'm gonna just put it over there.
Right.
There you go. There you go. All right, folks, that's gonna do it for me. I want to thank my fantastic crew. I want to thank Miss Mallory Pinker Pierre, Alex Blanc, my production assistant Jalen and Daryl, and I certainly want to thank Charlie for making me so good. Make me sound so good. Make sure you continue the conversation on social media at For the Culture 88.9. Also follow me on Faraji Muhammad on all social media platforms. They got me laughing. I'm trying to come up with the words. Anyway, up next, my big sister LaDon Black is coming up. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. I look forward to another great conversation with you tomorrow right here on For the Culture, here on your source for cool jazz and war, WEAA 88.9 FM and WEAA.org. Absolutely the voice of the community. And as always, Baltimore, do good, but most importantly, be good for the culture. Peace.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandy Mallory, the Public Service Director and host of Cool Vibes with the Neo Soul Cafe, heard during the middays, Monday through Friday. I want to take a moment to thank each of you for your assistance during the fall membership drive. Whether a large or small donation, each one stood for something. Your desire to keep WEAA available for everyone. There is still a need for your support. Please consider sending your tax-deductible donation to WEAA.org. Support your community radio station today.
Promoting the preservation and forward progression of jazz, music, and culture. Public Radio 88.9, WEAA FM and HD1 Baltimore.